3 in the morning. The bomb detonated. Elena Vale lay beneath the rubble, ears ringing from the explosion, tasting blood and plaster dust while security alarms screamed through the smoke. She had been invisible her entire life. A cleaning woman nobody noticed. Until Lucien Moretti saw her. Until his enemies decided she mattered. Now armed men were hunting her through burning airport corridors, while the most dangerous mafia boss in the country tore the city apart searching for her. 1 month ago, she was nobody. Tonight she became the reason empires would fall. Stay with me until the end, hit like, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. 3 weeks earlier, Elena Vale pushed her cleaning cart through Terminal C at exactly 3:47 a.m., moving like a ghost through fluorescent-lit corridors that smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Her uniform hung loose on her frame. She'd lost weight again, couldn't afford to eat much between rent and the medical bills still arriving months after her father's funeral. Cancer didn't care that he was already dead. The collection agencies didn't either. She stopped at gate 52, pulling out her supplies with mechanical efficiency. Wipe down the armrests. Empty the trash. Vacuum the carpet. Repeat. 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 This was her life now. Had been for 2 years, ever since she dropped out of the teaching program at the university to work double shifts caring for her dying father. The dreams of standing in front of a classroom felt like they belonged to someone else now. Some other Elena who still believed in futures. Excuse me. The voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. Deep, controlled, expensive. The kind of voice that expected to be obeyed. Elena looked up. The man standing 3 feet away didn't belong in an empty airport terminal at 4 in the morning. His suit probably cost more than she made in 6 months. Black, perfectly tailored, with a charcoal shirt underneath that made his amber-colored eyes look almost predatory in the harsh lighting. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair pushed back from a face that was handsome in a way that felt dangerous. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones. The kind of face that made smart women cross to the other side of the street. Elena's first instinct was to apologize, though she had no idea what for. "I'm sorry, I'll move." I dropped something. He gestured toward the space between 2 seats. A pen. It rolled under there. She blinked. A pen. This man, who looked like he could buy the entire airport, was asking her to retrieve a pen. Of course. Elena set down her spray bottle and crouched, reaching into the narrow gap. Her fingers closed around smooth metal. Expensive, heavy. The kind of pen that definitely wasn't sold at office supply stores. She pulled it free and held it out to him. Their fingers brushed when he took it. The contact lasted maybe half a second, but something electric shot up Elena's arm. She jerked back instinctively, nearly dropping her cleaning supplies. The man's eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time in 2 years, Elena felt truly seen. Not looked at, not glanced past. Seen. Like he was reading every exhausted, broken piece of her in a single glance. "Thank you." He didn't look away, didn't move, just stood there studying her face with an intensity that made her heart hammer against her ribs. "You're welcome." Elena's voice came out smaller than she intended. I have to finish this section." "What's your name?" The question caught her off guard. People didn't ask cleaning staff their names. They barely acknowledged their existence. "Elena." "Elena?" He repeated it slowly, like he was committing it to memory. "I'm Lucien." She nodded, throat dry, brain screaming at her to move, to get back to work, to stop standing here staring at a stranger like a stunned animal. But her feet wouldn't cooperate. "Do you work here every night?" Lucien asked. 5 nights a week, 11 to 7. That's brutal. She almost laughed. Brutal. Yeah, that was one word for it. "It pays the bills." Barely. "I really should have coffee with me." Elena's mouth fell open. "What?" "Coffee." Lucien tilted his head slightly, studying her reaction. "There's a place in the executive lounge. It's closed to the public right now, but I have access. 20 minutes, just conversation." This was insane. Men who looked like Lucien Moretti didn't ask women who looked like her, exhausted, underpaid, wearing a stained uniform, to have coffee at 4 in the morning. "I'm working," she said carefully. "Take a break." "I can't just—" "Yes, you can." Not aggressive, but absolutely certain. like he knew something about her schedule that she didn't. Elena should have said no, should have grabbed her cart and walked away, should have recognized the danger radiating off this man like heat from pavement in summer. Instead, she heard herself say, 20 minutes. Mott. The executive lounge looked like it belonged in a different universe. Leather chairs, marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the empty runways. Elena had cleaned this space 100 times, but never actually sat in it. She felt like an imposter as Lucian guided her to a corner table, his hand barely touching the small of her back, but somehow burning through the thin fabric of her uniform. He made coffee himself, didn't call anyone, didn't order anything, just moved behind the bar like he owned it and returned with 2 cups of something that smelled better than anything from the staff break room. Sugar? He asked. 2 packets. She took the cup, hands trembling slightly. Thank you. Lucian sat across from her, his attention absolute and unwavering. Under better lighting, she could see he was probably in his early 30s. There were faint scars on his knuckles, a thin white line along his jaw, marks that suggested violence in his past. Tell me about yourself, he said. There's not much to tell. I doubt that. Elena wrapped both hands around the warm cup, staring into the dark liquid. I work nights cleaning the airport. I live in a studio apartment in Riverside. I owe more money than I'll ever be able to pay back. That's my life. Why the debt? The question was direct, almost invasive, but something about the way he asked made it feel less like prying and more like genuine interest. Medical bills. My father had cancer. He died 8 months ago. She said it flatly, the way she'd learned to say it. No emotion, just facts. The treatment didn't work, but the bills kept coming anyway. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Elena met his eyes. Nobody does anything about it, but everyone's sorry. Lucian's mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. You're angry. I'm tired. You can be both. Yeah, she could. She was. What about you? Elena asked, deflecting. What brings you to an empty airport at 4 a.m? Business. What kind of business? The kind that keeps irregular hours. Evasive, but fair. She was a stranger. He didn't owe her his life story just because he'd bought her coffee. They sat in silence for a moment, and Elena became acutely aware of how surreal this entire situation was. She was sitting in the executive lounge with a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, drinking expensive coffee, while her cleaning cart waited abandoned at gate 52. I should get back, she said quietly. Not yet. I'll get in trouble. You won't. Again, that absolute certainty. Elena frowned. How do you know? Lucian leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table, eyes never leaving her face. Because I spoke to your supervisor 30 minutes ago and told him you'd be unavailable for the next hour. The coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. You what? I wanted to talk to you, so I made arrangements. You can't just... Elena set the cup down hard enough that liquid sloshed over the rim. You can't manipulate my work schedule without asking me. I just did. That's... She stood abruptly, chair scraping against marble. That's controlling and completely inappropriate. Lucian didn't move, didn't apologize, just watched her with those unnerving amber eyes. You're right, it is. Then why did you do it? Because from the moment I saw you, I knew I couldn't let you walk away without understanding what this is. What is? He stood then, moving around the table with predatory grace until he was standing close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that made her head spin. This, Lucian said quietly, whatever this is between us. You feel it too. Don't pretend you don't. Elena's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. I don't know you. Not yet. This is crazy. Yes. I should leave. But you won't. He was right. She hated that he was right. She should grab her cart and run back to her safe, miserable, predictable life. Instead, she stood there trembling while this beautiful, dangerous stranger looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. One more question, Lucian said. Then I'll let you go back to work. Elena's voice came out as barely a whisper. What question? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small black card, pressing it into her palm. His fingers lingered against hers for a moment too long. When you're ready to stop running from this, call me. Then he walked away, leaving Elena standing alone in the executive lounge, holding a business card with nothing but a phone number embossed in silver. Her hand was still shaking when she returned to her cleaning cart 20 minutes later. Elena didn't call. For 3 days, she shoved the black card into the bottom of her purse and pretended the encounter at the airport had never happened. She worked her shifts, she paid what bills she could. She ignored the way her stomach twisted every time she walked past gate 52. But Lucian didn't ignore her. The first message arrived on her phone the next night. You're afraid. I understand. But fear doesn't make this go away. She deleted it. The second message came 12 hours later. I'm not going anywhere, Elena. She blocked the number. He sent flowers to her apartment. She had no idea how he'd found her address. A massive arrangement of white roses with a card that read, "Blocking my number won't stop me from thinking about you every minute of every day." She threw them in the dumpster, but the scent lingered in her apartment for days. On the fourth night, Elena arrived at the airport for her shift and found her supervisor waiting at the entrance with an uncomfortable expression. You've been reassigned, he said. What? Why? Don't know. Orders from upstairs. You're working the international terminal now, gates 70 through 85. Elena's blood went cold. I've worked Terminal C for 2 years. Not anymore. Here's your new schedule. He handed her a printed sheet and walked away before she could argue. The international terminal was on the opposite side of the airport, completely different section. And gate 52, where she'd met Lucien, was nowhere near it. He'd gotten her moved. Somehow this man had reached into her workplace and rearranged her entire schedule. Fury ignited in her chest, hot and bright and overwhelming. Elena pulled out her phone, unblocked his number, and typed with shaking fingers, "Stay away from me." His response came 30 seconds later. "No, you're stalking me. I'm pursuing you. There's a difference. This isn't romantic. It's terrifying. I know. I'm sorry. But I can't stop." Elena stared at her phone screen, breath coming in short gasps. This was wrong. This whole thing was wrong. Men like Lucien, wealthy, powerful, obsessive, they didn't fall for women like her. They collected them, used them, discarded them. She should report him, block him again, tell someone. Instead, she typed, "Why me?" The response took longer this time, almost 5 minutes. When it came, it was longer than his previous messages. Because when I looked at you, I saw someone fighting, someone refusing to break even though the world has given you every reason to, someone beautiful and exhausted and angry and real. I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who want something from me. You didn't even want me to remember your name. That's why you... Elena read the message 3 times, tears burning behind her eyes. Then she turned off her phone and went to work. Basits. The flowers kept coming, a new arrangement every other day. He never sent them to her apartment again, always to the airport, always timed to arrive at the start of her shift. White roses, red roses, orchids, each with a card bearing a single sentence. I'm still here, still thinking about you, still waiting. Elena stopped throwing them away, started taking them home, hated herself for it. The messages continued too, but they changed. Less pursuit. More conversation. Lucien would send her things he'd seen that reminded him of her. A photo of sunrise over the city with the caption, "You should see the world when you're not working night shifts." A picture of a bookstore. "What do you read when you're not too exhausted?" She didn't respond, but she read every single message. 2 weeks after their first meeting, everything changed. Elena was cleaning gate 73 when her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it. Probably another message from Lucien, another beautiful distraction she couldn't afford. But something made her look. "Come outside. North entrance. Now." Her heart stopped. "What?" "Please, Elena. I need to see you. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." She should have said no. Should have blocked him permanently and filed a restraining order. Instead, she abandoned her cart and walked toward the north entrance with her pulse roaring in her ears. The automatic doors slid open, revealing the pre-dawn darkness outside. And there, Parked directly in the fire lane with absolutely no concern for airport security sat a convoy of 3 black SUVs. Lucien leaned against the middle vehicle, arms crossed, looking like every dark fantasy Elena had ever tried to suppress. He was wearing jeans and a black shirt, more casual than their first meeting, but somehow even more dangerous without the civilized veneer of the suit. The moment he saw her, he straightened. Elena walked toward him slowly, aware that she was still wearing her ugly uniform, that her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, that she probably smelled like industrial cleaning solution. "You came," Lucien said quietly. "You said 5 minutes. Clock's ticking." His mouth curved. "Fair enough. Get in the car." "Absolutely not." "Elena, I'm not getting into a strange man's car at 5 in the morning. Are you insane?" "Probably." He pushed off from the SUV, closing the distance between them. "But I'm also tired of chasing you through text messages. I want 5 minutes of your time, face to face, complete honesty. Then I'll leave you alone if that's what you really want." "You'll leave me alone?" "If you can look me in the eye and tell me you feel nothing, yes, I'll walk away." Elena's throat tightened. Because that was the problem, wasn't it? She couldn't say she felt nothing. She felt too much. This terrifying, overwhelming pull toward a man who had appeared in her life like a beautiful disaster. "One conversation," she said finally. "Somewhere public." Done. 20 minutes later, they were sitting in a 24-hour diner 3 blocks from the airport. Lucien had insisted on driving her himself, dismissing the SUVs with a gesture. His car was exactly what she'd expected. Sleek, black, expensive enough to make her nervous about touching anything. The diner was nearly empty. A tired waitress brought them coffee without being asked and disappeared back behind the counter. Lucien sat across from Elena in a cracked vinyl booth, and for the first time since they'd met, he looked uncertain. "I owe you an apology," he said. Elena wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "For which part? The stalking? The manipulation? The flowers?" "All of it." He ran a hand through his hair, and she noticed his knuckles were bruised. Fresh injuries. "I've handled this badly, I know that, but I don't know how else to—" He broke off, jaw clenching. "I've never done this before." "Pursued someone?" "Felt like this about someone." The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. "Lucien." Elena leaned forward slightly. "I need you to understand something. I'm not playing hard to get. I'm not testing you. I'm genuinely terrified of you." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." She took a breath. "Men like you don't notice women like me unless they want something. And I can't figure out what you want. That scares the hell out of me." "You think I want to hurt you. I think you could. Very easily." Lucien was quiet for a long moment, staring down at his coffee. When he finally looked up, his amber eyes were raw with something that looked like pain. "You're right," he said quietly. "I could hurt you. Probably will, even if I don't mean to. Because I'm not a good man, Elena. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the truth." Her pulse stuttered. "What kind of things?" "The kind I can't undo. The kind that have made me a very dangerous person to be close to." This was it. This was where she should stand up, walk away, protect herself from whatever darkness lived inside this man. "Tell me the truth," Elena said instead. "Who are you? Really?" Lucien held her gaze for a long, tense moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, sliding it across the table. The screen showed a news article from 6 months ago. The headline read, "Moretti Empire Expands. Lucien?" Moretti assumes full control following father's death. Elena's hands shook as she scrolled through the article. Words jumped out at her. Organized crime, mafia connections, investigated but never charged, dangerous reputation, estimated net worth in the hundreds of millions. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I run the Moretti organization," Lucien said flatly. "My father built an empire on violence and fear, and when he died, I inherited all of it. The businesses, the territory, the enemies, all of it." Elena set the phone down carefully, afraid she might drop it. "You're a criminal." "Yes." "A mafia boss." "Yes." "And you've been stalking me for 2 weeks." "Yes." She should be running, should be screaming, should be calling the police, though what good would that do against a man who apparently owned half the city? "Why?" Her voice cracked. Why me? With your money and power, you could have anyone. Why chase a broke cleaning woman who can barely keep her lights on? Lucien leaned forward, and the intensity in his eyes nearly stopped her heart. Because everyone else sees what I can give them. The money, the power, the fear. But when you looked at me that night at Gate 52, you saw a man bothering you while you were trying to work. You wanted me to leave. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my life? How intoxicating it is to meet someone who doesn't want anything from me? I don't understand. I'm surrounded by people who would kill for my approval, who smile at me because they're afraid of what happens if they don't, who lie and manipulate and scheme because that's the world I live in. His voice dropped. And then I saw you, exhausted and angry and completely indifferent to who I was. And for the first time in my life, I felt like someone might actually see me, the real me, not the empire, not the reputation, just me. Elena's throat was tight. I can't be part of your world. I can't. I'm not built for violence and crime, and I know. Then why are we having this conversation? Because I can't let you go. Lucien's voice was raw, desperate in a way that terrified her. I've tried. I've told myself 100 times to walk away, to leave you alone, to let you have your safe, normal life. But I can't. I see you when I close my eyes. I think about you constantly, and I know it's selfish and wrong, but I need you to know I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you look me in the eye right now and tell me you feel nothing. Elena opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. She couldn't say it, because it would be a lie. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. This is insane. I know. You're dangerous. Yes. Lucien reached across the table slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand, his fingers warm and solid around hers. But I will never hurt you, Elena. Everyone else, yes. I'm violent and ruthless and capable of terrible things, but never you. You're the only light I've found in 20 years of darkness. A tear slid down her cheek before she could stop it. I don't know what to do, she admitted. Have breakfast with me, that's all. Just breakfast. And then I'll take you home, and you can decide if you ever want to see me again. It was such a small thing. Breakfast, normal, almost innocent. But Elena understood what he was really asking. Let me in. Let me try. Give me a chance. She should say no, should protect herself, should run. Okay, Elena heard herself say. Breakfast? Lucien's expression cracked open with something that looked like relief and hope and desperate gratitude all mixed together. And in that moment, sitting in a rundown diner at dawn with a mafia boss holding her hand like she was made of glass, Elena realized with terrifying clarity that she'd already fallen. She just hadn't admitted it yet. The sun was rising when Lucien drove her back to her apartment. Neither of them had talked much during breakfast, just existed in the same space, drinking coffee, sharing silence that somehow felt more intimate than words. He pulled up outside her building, a rundown complex in a neighborhood that definitely didn't see cars like his very often. This is me, Elena said quietly. Lucien looked at the building with an expression she couldn't read. You live here alone? Yeah. It's not safe. It's what I can afford. His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Instead, he turned to face her, and the intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. Can I see you again? He asked. I don't know. That's not a no. It's not a yes either. Lucien reached out slowly, giving her every opportunity to stop him, and brushed a strand of hair back from her face. His touch was gentle, so gentle it made her ache. I'll wait, he said. However long you need. Elena's heart was pounding. And if I decide this is too dangerous? If I decide I can't do this? Then I'll hate it, but I'll respect it. She believed him. God help her. She believed him. I need time, Elena whispered. Take all the time you need. She opened the car door, started to step out, then paused. Against every survival instinct she possessed, she turned back. Lucien? Yes? Thank you for breakfast and for being honest. Something shifted in his expression, something vulnerable and raw. Good night, Elena. It's morning. Then good morning. She smiled despite everything. despite the fear and confusion and overwhelming impossibility of this entire situation. Then she walked into her building without looking back, feeling his eyes on her until she disappeared from view. 3 days passed. Elena worked her shifts, avoided Gate 52 in the international terminal like it carried a plague, stared at her phone 100 times without calling. The flowers stopped coming. The messages stopped. Lucien had meant what he said. He was giving her space. Somehow, that made it worse. On the 4th day, Elena's apartment building lost power. Again. The landlord claimed it was electrical issues, but Elena knew the truth. He simply hadn't paid the utility bills. She sat in the dark, wrapped in a blanket, eating cold soup straight from the can because her electric stove didn't work. This was her life. This was her future. Working until her body gave out, drowning in debt, alone in the dark. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, expecting a collection agency or her supervisor with another schedule change. Instead, it was Lucien. "I miss you." 3 words, that's all. But they cracked something open inside her chest. Elena stared at the message for a long time. Then, hands shaking, she typed back, "I miss you too." The response came instantly. "Can I see you?" "When?" "Now. I'm outside." Her heart stopped. She jumped up, stumbling to the window and pulled back the curtain. Sure enough, there was Lucien's sleek black car parked on the street below, and he was leaning against it, phone in hand, looking up at her building. Even from 4 floors up, she could feel the intensity of his gaze. Elena grabbed her coat, didn't even bother changing out of her sweatpants and old t-shirt, and ran down the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. She burst through the front entrance, and Lucien straightened immediately, his expression transforming from tense to cautiously hopeful in an instant. They stood there on the cracked sidewalk, 5 feet apart, just looking at each other. "Hi," Elena said breathlessly. "Hi." Lucien took a step closer. "Your building has no power. How did you—" She stopped. Of course he knew. He seemed to know everything. "It happens sometimes. That's not acceptable. It's my life." "It doesn't have to be." Elena wrapped her arms around herself. "I didn't call you here to fix my problems." "Why did you call me here?" Good question. She didn't have a good answer. "I don't know," she admitted. I needed to see you." Something blazed in Lucien's eyes, hot and fierce and consuming. "Say that again." "What?" "That you needed to see me." "Say it again, so Elena's voice broke. "I needed to see you. I tried not to. I tried to forget about you and move on and be smart. But I can't stop thinking about you, and I hate it, and I'm terrified, but I needed to see you." Lucien closed the distance between them in 2 strides and pulled her against his chest so hard it knocked the breath from her lungs. He didn't kiss her, didn't say anything, just held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. Elena's face pressed against his shirt, and she could hear his heartbeat, fast and hard and just as frantic as hers. "Come with me," Lucien said against her hair. "Where?" "Anywhere. Everywhere. I don't care. Just come with me." This was the moment, the choice, the point of no return. Elena pulled back just enough to look up at him. "If I do this, if I let you in, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't lie to me, ever, about who you are or what you do. I can't survive this if you lie." Lucien's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "I promise, complete honesty, no matter how dark it gets." Elena took a shaky breath. Then she made the most dangerous decision of her life. "Okay, take me with you." Lucien's estate existed in a different universe. They drove for almost an hour outside the city, past suburbs and gated communities, and finally down a private road that seemed to go on forever. Trees lined both sides like sentries, and Elena caught glimpses of security cameras hidden among the branches. When they finally reached the main house, Elena's mouth fell open. It wasn't a house, it was a mansion. 3 stories of stone and glass surrounded by manicured gardens that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. "You live here?" she asked faintly. "Yes?" Lucien parked in a circular driveway in front of massive double doors. "Come inside." He led her through entrance halls with marble floors and crystal chandeliers, past rooms filled with expensive furniture and artwork that probably belonged in museums. Elena felt like she was walking through a dream or a nightmare. She couldn't decide which. They ended up in a massive kitchen that looked like something from a cooking show. All stainless steel and granite countertops and appliances Elena couldn't even identify. "Sit," Lucian said, gesturing to the stools at the center island. "You don't have to—" "I'm making you breakfast. Real breakfast. Sit." Elena sat, watching in stunned silence as Lucien Moretti, mafia boss, dangerous criminal, owner of an empire built on fear, moved around the kitchen with surprising competence, pulling out eggs and vegetables and cheese. "You cook?" she asked. "My mother taught me before she died." He cracked eggs into a bowl with practiced efficiency. She said a man who couldn't feed himself was pathetic. "How old were you when you lost her?" 12. Elena's chest tightened. "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." He whisked the eggs with more force than necessary. "My father remarried 6 months later. She lasted 3 years before the lifestyle drove her away." The lifestyle. Violence, paranoia, armed guards at every meal. She wanted normal. This world doesn't do normal. Elena watched him cook, seeing the tension in his shoulders, the careful control in every movement. "Is that why you wanted me? Because I represent normal?" Lucy looked up, meeting her eyes across the kitchen. "I wanted you because the moment I saw you, every defense I've built in 32 years crumbled. You made me feel human again, and I didn't even know I'd stopped feeling human until that moment." He plated the omelet, perfectly golden, filled with vegetables and cheese, and set it in front of her with a fork and napkin. Elena stared at the food. "I can't afford—" "Stop." Lucian's voice was firm. "You're not paying for anything. Not ever again. That's not how this works." "I don't want to be bought." "You think I'm trying to buy you?" He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Elena, if I wanted to throw money at someone, I have a dozen women who would happily accept. I don't want to buy you. I want you to stop struggling long enough to breathe." Her throat tightened. "I don't know how to do that." "Then let me teach you." They ate in silence. Well, Elena ate while Lucien watched her with an intensity that made every bite feel significant. The omelet was perfect. Of course it was. When she finished, Lucien took her plate and set it in the sink, then turned back to her. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly, "and it's going to scare you." Elena's stomach dropped. "What?" "I had you investigated." The kitchen went very cold. "You what?" "After we met, I hired someone to find out everything about you. Your father's medical bills, your student loans, your eviction notice from 2 months ago that you managed to fight, your landlord's history of utility shutoffs, all of it." Elena slid off the stool, hands shaking. "You invaded my privacy." "Yes." "You had no right." "I know." Lucian didn't move, didn't try to justify it. "I needed to know who you were, if you were a threat, if someone had sent you." "A threat?" Elena's voice rose. "I'm a cleaning woman, and I'm a man with a lot of enemies who would love nothing more than to hurt me through someone I care about." The admission hung in the air between them. "You barely know me," Elena whispered. "I know enough." Lucien's jaw clenched. "I know you worked 3 jobs while your father was dying. I know you dropped out of school a month before graduating because he needed full-time care. I know you've been fighting every single day for 2 years just to survive. I know you're stronger than anyone I've ever met." Tears burned behind Elena's eyes. "That doesn't give you the right to violate my privacy." "You're right. It doesn't. And I'm not going to apologize for it because I do it again." He took a step toward her. "But I'm going to promise you that from this moment forward, I won't hide anything from you. You want to know something? Ask. You'll get the truth. Always." Elena wiped at her eyes angrily. "I should leave." "Do you want to?" "Yes." "No, I don't know." She pressed her palms against her temples. "This is too much. You're too much." "I know." Lucian's voice softened. "I know I'm overwhelming. I know I'm controlling and obsessive and probably halfway to insane when it comes to you. But I can't change that, Elena. I can only promise that everything I do comes from wanting to protect you, not control you." That's the same thing. No, it's not. He held her gaze. Control means making decisions for you. Protection means giving you the power to make your own choices while making sure nothing destroys you in the process. Elena's breath shuddered. And if I choose to walk away right now? Pain flashed across Lucian's face, but his voice stayed steady. Then I'll drive you home and hate every second of it, but I won't stop you. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth written in every tense line of his body. He meant it. He would let her go if she asked, but he would break doing it. I need time, Elena said finally. Space to think without you looking at me like that. Like what? Like I'm the only thing in the world that matters. You are. Stop. Her voice cracked. Stop saying things like that. I can't think when you say things like that. Lucian was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Bring the car around, he said into the phone. I'm taking Miss Vale home. He hung up and looked at her with eyes that held too much emotion. I'll give you space, he said quietly. But Elena, I'm not disappearing. I'll be here when you're ready, however long that takes. 15 minutes later, they were back in his car, driving through the pre-dawn darkness toward the city. Neither of them spoke. The silence was heavy with everything unsaid. When they reached her building, Lucienne parked but didn't turn off the engine. Thank you, Elena said quietly, for breakfast and for being honest. Elena. She looked at him. One more thing. Lucian reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, pressing it into her hand. Don't open this until you're inside. What is it? A choice. Before she could ask what that meant, he leaned across the console and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, so soft, so careful, like she was something precious. Then he pulled back, and the look in his eyes nearly shattered her. Sleep well, Elena. She got out of the car in a daze, clutching the envelope, and didn't look back as she walked into her building. Inside her dark apartment, Elena finally opened the envelope. A check fell out, made out to her, for an amount that would cover every single one of her father's medical bills, her student loans, 6 months of rent, and then some. And a note in strong, slashing handwriting. Not trying to buy you, just trying to let you breathe. Use it or tear it up. Either way, it's yours. No strings, no expectations. Just one human being helping another. L. Elena sank onto her couch and stared at the check until the numbers blurred. Then she did something she hadn't done since her father's funeral. She cried. And somewhere across the city, in a mansion surrounded by armed guards and dark secrets, Lucian Moretti sat alone in his study and wondered if he'd just lost the only light he'd found in 20 years of darkness. Elena didn't cash the check. For 5 days, it sat on her kitchen counter like a live grenade, the numbers staring at her every time she walked past. $243,000, enough to erase every debt that had been crushing her for 2 years, enough to breathe. But taking it felt like stepping off a cliff she couldn't see the bottom of. She went to work, pushed her cart through the international terminal, pretended her hands didn't shake every time her phone buzzed. Lucian had kept his word. No messages, no flowers, no midnight appearances outside her building. He'd given her space. The absence felt worse than the pursuit. On the 6th day, Elena's supervisor called her into his cramped office at the end of her shift. Marcus was a decent guy. Overworked, underpaid, perpetually exhausted like everyone else in their tax bracket. Got some news, he said, not meeting her eyes. Corporate's doing layoffs. Last hired, first fired. Your position's being eliminated end of the month. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? I'm sorry, Elena. I fought for you, but the numbers don't lie. They're cutting 20% of the cleaning staff. 20%, random, impersonal, just business. Except Elena knew better. She walked out of that office, pulled out her phone, and called Lucian for the first time. He answered on the first ring. Elena. Just her name. But the way he said it, like he'd been holding his breath for 6 days waiting to hear her voice, made her chest tight. Did you get me fired? Her voice was shaking. Silence. Then, yes. The honesty shouldn't have surprised her. He'd promised no lies. But hearing it still felt like a punch to the gut. Why? She demanded. Because you were killing yourself working nights in a place that didn't value you. Because I want you safe. Because I'm selfish and couldn't stand the thought of you exhausting yourself for minimum wage when I could. When you could what? Control my entire life? Make my decisions for me? When I could take care of you. His voice was low, rough. Elena, please. No. She was shaking now, fury and fear mixing into something that tasted like acid. You don't get to do this. You don't get to dismantle my life because you've decided you know what's best for me. I'm trying to help. I didn't ask for your help. The words came out as almost a shout. An elderly couple walking past gave her strange looks. Elena lowered her voice, pressing her palm against her forehead. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. Lucienne sounded wrecked. I know, and I'm sorry, but I can't watch you destroy yourself when I have the power to stop it. That's not your choice to make. Then what do you want from me? For the first time, she heard real frustration in his voice. Tell me what you want, Elena, because I'm losing my mind here. I want... Her throat closed. What did she want? To go back to before she met him? Impossible. To pretend she didn't feel this terrifying pull toward him? Too late. I want you to stop trying to save me. Can't do that. Why not? Because I'm already in love with you. The world stopped. Elena stood frozen on the sidewalk outside the airport, phone pressed to her ear, barely breathing. Don't say that, she whispered. Why? It's true. You don't know me. I know enough. I know you're the only person in my life who's ever looked at me and seen something worth saving. I know I think about you every second of every day. I know I'd burn this entire city down if it meant keeping you safe. His voice dropped. And I know you feel it too. This thing between us. Don't tell me you don't. Tears were sliding down her face now. This is crazy. So leave, walk away, forget you ever met me. A pause. But we both know you won't. Elena closed her eyes. He was right. God help her, he was right. I need to see you, she said quietly. When? Now. I'll send a car. No, I'll take a cab. Just send me the address. She hung up before he could argue, before she could change her mind, before common sense could reassert itself. 20 minutes later, Elena was in the back of a cab heading toward Lucian's estate with her heart hammering against her ribs. This was insane, reckless, probably the worst decision she'd ever made, but she couldn't stop herself. Ulpant. Lucien was waiting outside when the cab pulled up. He must have been standing there the entire time, watching the road. The moment Elena stepped out of the car, his expression cracked open with relief so raw it almost hurt to look at. She walked toward him slowly, aware of security cameras tracking her movement, of guards she couldn't see but knew were there. They stopped 3 feet apart. You came, Lucian said. I shouldn't have. But you did. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. I lost my job because of you. I know. I should hate you for that. Do you? She looked up at him, at this beautiful, dangerous man who had invaded her life like a hurricane, and felt her resolve crumbling. No, she admitted. I don't. And that terrifies me. Lucian closed the distance between them and cupped her face with both hands, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for getting you fired, for manipulating your life, for being too much, too fast, too everything. But I'm not sorry for wanting you. And I'm not sorry for doing everything in my power to keep you safe. Even if I don't want to be kept? Even then. Elena's breath shuddered. That's not healthy. Nothing about this is healthy, but it's real. And I'd rather have something real and messy than something perfect and fake. She should pull away, should maintain some kind of boundary. Instead, she leaned into his touch, feeling the warmth of his palms against her cheeks. I cashed the check, she whispered. Lucien went very still. What? This morning. I deposited it, paid off everything. She looked up at him. Does that make me a terrible person? It makes you smart. It makes me dependent on you. No, it makes you free of debt that was crushing you. There's a difference. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. The money was a gift, Elena. No strings. You don't owe me anything. I feel like I owe you everything. You don't. But she did. That was the problem. She'd spent 2 years drowning, and he'd thrown her a lifeline. How was she supposed to walk away from that? Come inside, Lucian said softly. Please. Elena nodded and he led her into the mansion, past the grand entrance, through hallways lined with expensive art, up a wide staircase to the second floor. He brought her to a library that looked like something from a movie. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, a massive fireplace with a fire already burning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. Sit, Lucian said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs. Elena sat, and he disappeared for a moment, returning with 2 glasses of whiskey. I don't usually drink, she said. Tonight you do. He handed her a glass and sat across from her. We need to talk. About what? About what happens next. Elena took a sip of whiskey, the burn steadying her nerves. What do you want to happen next? Lucian leaned back, studying her with those unnerving amber eyes. I want you to move in here. She nearly choked on her drink. Excuse me? Your apartment is falling apart. Your landlord is a criminal. You have no job and no income. Move in here. Let me take care of you while you figure out what you actually want to do with your life. I can't just... Why not? Because we barely know each other. We know enough. He set his glass down. I know you make this noise in the back of your throat when you're trying not to cry. I know you take your coffee with exactly 2 sugars. I know you wanted to be a teacher before life got in the way. I know you're scared of me but want me anyway. What else do I need to know? Everything, Elena thought. You need to know everything I'm not saying. This is moving too fast, she said instead. Would you prefer I court you for 6 months, take you on proper dates, pretend we're normal people having a normal relationship? Lucian leaned forward. We both know that's not what this is. This is obsession. This is 2 broken people finding something that makes them feel less broken, and I'm not going to waste time pretending otherwise. Elena's hands were shaking. What if I say no? Then I'll be disappointed, but I won't force you. You'll just manipulate circumstances until I have no other choice. His jaw clenched. That's not fair. Isn't it? Elena stood, pacing toward the windows. You got me fired, Lucian. You invaded my privacy. You sent me enough money to solve all my problems. And now you're offering me a place to live when you know I have nowhere else to go. How is that not manipulation? Because I'd offer you the same thing even if you were a millionaire living in a penthouse. He stood too, moving toward her. This isn't about control. It's about wanting you close, wanting to see you every day, wanting to fall asleep knowing you're safe under the same roof. Why? She turned to face him. Why do you care so much? Because for 32 years I've lived in darkness, violence, fear. I've hurt people. I've destroyed lives. I've done things that would make you physically ill if you knew the details. His voice was rough. And then I saw you pushing that cleaning cart, and for the first time in my entire life I felt like maybe I wasn't completely lost. Like maybe there was still something good I could protect instead of destroy. Tears burned behind Elena's eyes. I'm not good. I'm just tired. You're both, and that's what makes you perfect. Nothing about me is perfect. Everything about you is perfect to me. Elena pressed her palms against the cold glass of the window, trying to steady herself. Outside, the gardens were dark, except for security lights casting long shadows across perfectly manicured lawns. If I do this, she said quietly, if I move in here, I need rules. Name them. No more manipulating my life without asking me first. Agreed. Complete honesty, even when it's ugly. Already promised you that. And I get to leave whenever I want. No guards preventing me. No locked doors. If I decide this isn't working, I walk away, and you let me go. Lucien was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was strained. That's the hardest one. But yes, I agree. Elena turned to look at him. Just like that? Just like that. He moved closer, stopping just inches away. I want you here because you choose to be here, not because I've trapped you. Even if choosing to leave destroys you? Even then. She searched his face for any sign of deception and found none. Just raw honesty and desperate hope. Okay, Elena whispered. I'll stay. For now. The relief that flooded Lucien's expression was almost painful to witness. He pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her so tightly she could barely breathe. Thank you, he said against her hair. Thank you. Elena closed her eyes, feeling his heartbeat against her cheek, and wondered if she'd just made the best or worst decision of her life. Probably both. Moving into Lucien's estate took less than a day because Elena owned almost nothing worth keeping. A few boxes of clothes, some books, photographs of her father. That was it. The physical remnants of 26 years condensed into the trunk of Lucien's car. He gave her a bedroom on the second floor, massive, with an attached bathroom that was bigger than her entire old apartment. The closet alone could have housed a family of 4. "This is too much," Elena said, standing in the doorway. "It's yours." Lucien set her boxes down on the bed. "Decorate it however you want. Change everything. I don't care. Just make it feel like home." Home. The word felt foreign. That first night, Elena lay awake in a bed so soft it felt like floating, staring at the ceiling and wondering what the hell she'd done. Somewhere in this massive house, Lucien was also awake. She could feel it somehow, like their insomnia was synchronized. Around 2 in the morning, there was a soft knock on her door. Elena sat up. "Come in." Lucien entered wearing just sleep pants and a t-shirt. In the dim light from the hallway, she could see dark circles under his eyes. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No, you?" Never could. He stayed near the door, not presuming entry. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay." Define okay. His mouth curved slightly. "Fair point." He was quiet for a moment. "I know this is strange, living here, being in my world. If you need anything." "Lucien." "Yes?" "Stop hovering and come sit down." He crossed the room and sat on the edge of her bed, careful to maintain distance. Up close, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion carved into his features. "When did you last sleep?" Elena asked. "Honestly, I don't remember." "That's not healthy." "Neither is falling in love with someone in 2 weeks, but here we are." Despite everything, Elena almost smiled. "You really don't have a filter, do you?" "Not with you. Can't seem to manage it." He ran a hand through his hair. "Everyone else gets the controlled version, the mask. But with you, everything just spills out." "Is that why you want me here? Because I make you feel honest?" "I want you here because being away from you feels like drowning." The raw admission hung between them. Elena reached out slowly and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers immediately, desperately, like she was the only thing anchoring him to reality. "Stay," she said quietly, "until I fall asleep. Just stay." Lucien's eyes went dark with something that looked like gratitude and pain mixed together. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm asking anyway." He shifted carefully, lying down on top of the covers beside her, close enough to feel his warmth, but not touching except for their joined hands. They lay there in the darkness, silent, breathing in sync. Elena fell asleep sometime before dawn with Lucien's thumb tracing slow circles against her palm. When she woke hours later, he was gone, but there was a note on the pillow beside her. "Had to handle some business. Back by dinner. Make yourself at home. Everything here is yours. L." Elena pressed the note against her chest and tried to ignore the way her heart stuttered. The next 2 weeks fell into a strange rhythm. Lucien left early most mornings, business he called it, though Elena knew what that really meant. He was running a criminal empire, making decisions that probably involved violence and money and things she was better off not knowing. But when he came home, he was just Lucien. They had dinner together every night. Real dinners, not takeout or canned soup. Lucien cooked most of the time, and Elena discovered he was genuinely talented in the kitchen. Some nights they talked for hours. Other nights they sat in comfortable silence, just existing in the same space. He never pushed for more than she was willing to give. Never pressured her for physical intimacy beyond the occasional hand-holding or his arms around her when she needed comfort. It should have felt wrong, this domesticity with a mafia boss. But somehow it felt more right than anything in Elena's life had felt in years. Until the night everything shattered. Elena was reading in the library when she heard raised voices from downstairs. Male voices. Angry. She set down her book and moved toward the stairs, staying out of sight. "Told you to handle it quietly." That was Lucien, and she'd never heard him sound like that. Cold. Lethal. "We did handle it," another voice, rougher. "But the bastard talked before we could stop him." "Who did he talk to?" Russians. Volkov's people. Silence. Then, fuck. Boss, if they know about her, they don't. They might. We can't risk. I said they don't. Lucien's voice was absolute. And if they even think about touching her, I'll paint the streets with their blood. Elena's stomach dropped. We should move her, the other man said. Somewhere safer. Somewhere they can't. Yeah, she stays here. With me. Where I can protect her. Lucien, that's not up for debate, Marco. Then we need to hit them first. Take out Volkov before... I'm already planning it. A pause. Double the security detail. I want eyes on every entrance, every road, every possible approach. If a goddamn bird flies over this property without authorization, I want to know about it. Done. Elena's heart was pounding. She should go back to the library, pretend she hadn't heard, but her feet wouldn't move. What about the girl? Marco asked. Does she know what she's gotten into? No, and she's not going to. Not if I can help it. You can't protect her from this forever. Watch me. Footsteps. Elena scrambled backward, but too late. Lucien appeared at the top of the stairs and froze when he saw her standing there, eyes wide, face pale. Elena. His expression shifted from deadly to devastated in a heartbeat. How much did you hear? Enough. Her voice was shaking. Who's Volkov? No one you need to worry about. Bullshit. I heard what he said. About moving me. About them knowing about me. Fear was clawing at her throat. What's going on, Lucien? He moved toward her slowly, hands raised like he was approaching a frightened animal. Come to the library. Let me explain. Explain what? That you've put a target on my back? That people are going to come after me because of you? No one is coming after you. You just ordered someone to double your security because Russians might know I exist. Her voice was rising, panic bleeding through. How is that not a threat? Elena, please. No. She backed away from him. You said complete honesty. You promised. I am being honest. Then who the fuck is Volkov? And why did that man downstairs sound terrified when he mentioned his name? Lucien's jaw clenched. For a long moment, he just stared at her, clearly weighing how much truth to give. Finally, he said, Dmitry Volkov runs the Russian syndicate in this city. He's been trying to take my territory for 2 years. Last month, one of my men killed his cousin during a deal that went bad. Now he wants revenge. The floor felt unsteady beneath Elena's feet. And he knows about me? Maybe. We're not sure yet. Jesus Christ. She pressed her hands against her face. I can't. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Getting pulled into your world. Becoming a target. You're not a target. You're protected. By what? Armed guards? Locked gates? She looked at him with tears burning her eyes. I came here to get away from drowning, Lucien. Not to get caught in a war. This isn't your war. It's mine, and I will handle it. How? By killing people? By starting a gang war in the streets? His silence was answer enough. Elena's stomach turned. I think I'm going to be sick. She ran to the bathroom, barely making it before her dinner came back up. She knelt on the cold tile, shaking, while Lucien stood in the doorway, looking helpless. When the nausea finally passed, she sat back against the wall, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. I can't do this, she whispered. Yes, you can. Lucien crouched beside her, not touching, just present. I know this is terrifying, but I swear to you nothing is going to happen. I've handled men like Volkov before. How? By making them disappear? He didn't answer. Oh my God. Elena looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth written in his expression. You've killed people. Yes. The simple honesty was almost worse than a lie would have been. How many? Enough that I stopped counting years ago. Elena's breath came in short gasps. She'd known intellectually what Lucien was. A criminal. A mafia boss. A dangerous man. But hearing him admit to murder, to multiple murders, made it viscerally, terrifyingly real. I should leave, she said. No. This was a mistake. Elena, listen to me. Lucien's voice was urgent now. If you leave this house, you're actually in more danger. Volkov doesn't know for certain that you're important to me. But if he sees you leave, if he follows you, if you're out there alone without protection, That's when you become a real target. So I'm trapped. You're safe. Those aren't the same thing. Right now they have to be. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Pain flashed across his face. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry you got dragged into this. But I can't let you go out there unprotected. Not when there's even a chance Volkov might use you to get to me. Elena wrapped her arms around herself, feeling cold despite the heated bathroom. What do we do? We wait. I'm handling the Volkov situation. Give me 2 weeks, maybe less. And then this threat disappears. You mean he disappears? Lucian's eyes were hard. If that's what it takes to keep you safe, yes. And that doesn't bother you? Killing someone? Not even a little. Not when it comes to protecting you. The certainty in his voice should have horrified her. Instead, some dark part of Elena felt almost relieved, protected. Like for the first time in her life, someone was willing to become a monster on her behalf. God, what was wrong with her? I need time, she said quietly, to process this. Take all the time you need, but promise me you won't leave the estate. Do I have a choice? Always. But I'm asking you, please, stay inside these walls until I know you're safe. Elena met his eyes and saw genuine fear there. Not for himself, for her. Okay, she whispered. 2 weeks. But then we talk about this. Really talk. No more half-truths. I promise. She didn't believe him, not entirely, but she nodded anyway. The next week was tense. Lucien barely left the estate, conducting business from his study with an endless parade of hard-faced men coming and going at all hours. Security increased until Elena felt like she was living in a military compound. Armed guards everywhere, cameras on every corner, black SUVs patrolling the perimeter. She tried to maintain normalcy, read books from the library, explored the gardens during the day when Lucien insisted she have guards with her, avoided thinking about the violence being orchestrated on her behalf. But at night, lying alone in her too-big bed, the fear crept in. What if someone got through the security? What if Volkov decided she was worth the risk? What if Lucien failed to protect her? On the 8th day, she was sitting in the library when Lucien entered, and she immediately knew something was wrong. His face was ashen, his normally controlled expression cracked with barely contained rage. What happened? Elena asked, standing. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Lucien pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. It was Elena, taken from a distance, leaving the airport on her last shift. Someone had been watching her. Volkov sent this to me an hour ago, Lucien said, voice tight, with a message. What message? That he knows you exist, that he knows you matter to me, and that unless I withdraw from the harbor district, he'll make sure I regret ever touching what's his. Elena's blood went cold. The harbor district? Territory I took from him 6 months ago. He wants it back. Lucien's jaw clenched. He thinks threatening you will make me give it to him. Will it? No, because I'm not negotiating with him. I'm eliminating him. The casual way he said it, like he was talking about swatting a fly instead of murdering a human being, made Elena's stomach turn. When? She asked. Tonight. I have people in position. By morning, Volkov and everyone loyal to him will be gone. Gone. Dead, Elena. Don't make me pretty it up. She sat down heavily, legs suddenly unsteady. And if something goes wrong, if he has people who come after you, after me, then I'll handle them too. Lucien moved closer, crouching in front of her. This is what I do. This is who I am. I don't lose. And I sure as hell don't let people threaten what's mine. I'm not a possession. No, you're so much more than that. His hand came up to cup her face. You're the only thing in this world I'm afraid of losing. Elena's eyes burned. I don't want you to kill for me. Too late. I'd kill 1,000 men if it meant keeping you safe. That's not love, that's obsession. It's both. He pressed his forehead against hers. And I'm done apologizing for it. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing together, teetering on the edge of something that felt like disaster and salvation at the same time. Come back safe, Elena whispered. Always. He kissed her then, Not gentle, not careful, but desperate and claiming and full of dark promise. Elena kissed him back with equal desperation, her hands fisting in his shirt, and for those few seconds, the rest of the world disappeared. When he pulled away, his eyes were molten gold. "Lock yourself in your room tonight," he said. "Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. Lucienne, promise me." "I promise." He kissed her forehead and walked away, his shoulders set with lethal purpose. Elena watched him go and felt her heart crack open. She tried to follow his instructions, locked herself in her bedroom, turned on the television for background noise, tried to read, to sleep, to do anything except think about Lucien out there somewhere orchestrating violence. But around midnight, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She should have ignored it, should have deleted it immediately. Instead, she opened the message. A photo. Lucien's car, parked outside what looked like an abandoned warehouse. And text below it, "He's going to die tonight, and then we're coming for you." Elena's hands shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. This was a bluff. Had to be. Lucien had dozens of men, professional security. He knew what he was doing. But what if it wasn't a bluff? What if right now Lucien was walking into a trap? Another message. Your choice. Stay locked in your golden cage or save the man you love. Clock's ticking, princess. Attached was an address. Elena stared at it, heart hammering. This was insane. Going to that address would be suicidal. Volkov's people clearly wanted to lure her out, use her as bait, maybe kill her. But if there was even a chance Lucien needed help, she grabbed her jacket and phone, unlocked her bedroom door, and ran. The estate security was focused on external threats, not on one woman running through the gardens toward the back gate. Elena knew the codes, had watched Lucien punch them in a dozen times. Her fingers flew over the keypad, and the gate clicked open. She was through it and running down the dark road before anyone could stop her. A stupid, reckless, probably fatal decision. But Lucien had said he'd burn the city down for her. Seemed only fair she'd walk into fire for him. Walk. The warehouse address led to a neighborhood Elena didn't recognize. Industrial, abandoned, the kind of place where screams wouldn't draw attention. She approached on foot, having left the cab 6 blocks back because she wasn't completely suicidal. The building loomed against the night sky, dark and silent, except for a single light burning in a window on the second floor. Lucien's car was parked outside, exactly like the photo. This was a trap. Obviously a trap. Elena's phone buzzed again. "Come inside or we start cutting pieces off him." A photo loaded below the text. Lucien, bloodied and restrained in a chair, a gun pressed to his temple. The world tilted. Elena's breath came in ragged gasps. This couldn't be real, couldn't be happening. But the blood on Lucien's face looked real. The fury in his eyes looked real. And the man holding the gun looked like he'd enjoy pulling the trigger. "You have 2 minutes," the next text read. Then he dies. Elena didn't think, didn't plan, just ran toward the warehouse entrance, yanked open the rusted metal door, and stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind her with a sound like thunder. Locks engaged. Mechanical. Final. "Hello, Elena." She spun around. A man stood in the shadows, tall, silver-haired, with a face carved from granite and eyes cold as winter. "Dmitri Volkov, I presume," she said, surprised her voice worked. "Smart girl." He smiled without warmth. "Though not smart enough to stay where you were safe." "Where's Lucien?" "Upstairs, waiting for you." Volkov gestured toward a staircase. "After you." Elena's mind raced. If she went up those stairs, she was dead. She knew that with absolute certainty. But if she didn't, Lucien died. No choice at all, really. She climbed the stairs with Volkov behind her, each step feeling like walking toward her own execution. The second floor opened into a large empty space. Concrete floors, exposed beams, broken windows letting in cold night air. And in the center of the room, exactly as the photo had shown, Lucien sat zip-tied to a metal chair with 3 armed men surrounding him. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye. His lip was split. Bruises were already forming on his jaw. But the rage in his eyes when he saw Elena was absolutely terrifying. "You fucking idiot," he snarled. What the hell are you doing here? Saving you, Elena said, trying to sound braver than she felt. You walked into a trap. So did you, apparently. Despite everything, his mouth twitched. Touché. Touching, Volkov said, moving past Elena. Young love. So stupid. So predictable. He circled Lucian's chair like a shark. I told you what would happen if you didn't give me back my territory. And I told you to go fuck yourself, Lucian said flatly. Volkov backhanded him across the face hard enough that blood flew. Stop! Elena lunged forward, but rough hands grabbed her arms, yanking her back. Don't touch him, she said, voice shaking with fury and fear. Or what? Volkov smiled. You'll call the police? File a complaint? He laughed. Sweet girl, the police don't come to places like this. And even if they did, half of them work for me. He pulled a knife from his belt. Long, serrated, the kind designed to cause maximum damage. Here's what's going to happen, Volkov said conversationally. I'm going to hurt you, slowly, carefully, while Lucian watches and can't do a fucking thing to stop it. And when you're begging me to kill you, when you're screaming his name, when he's broken, then I'll put a bullet in his head and let you live with what your love cost him. Elena's vision swam. Lucian was thrashing against his restraints, the zip ties cutting into his wrists until blood ran down his hands. Touch her and I will hunt down everyone you've ever loved, Lucian said, voice deadly calm. Your wife, your children, your grandchildren. I will erase your entire bloodline from existence. Empty threats from a dead man. Volkov moved toward Elena with the knife, and she knew with absolute certainty that this was it. This was how she died. Then the lights went out. Gunfire exploded through the darkness, automatic weapons, deafening, coming from every direction at once. Someone tackled Elena to the ground, covering her body with their own as bullets tore through the air above them, screaming. More gunfire. The wet sound of bodies hitting concrete. Then silence. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in sickly green. Elena looked up from where she lay pinned to the floor. Volkov's men were dead. All of them. Bullet holes punched through skulls, chests, throats. Volkov himself knelt in the center of the carnage, hands on his head, surrounded by a dozen armed men in tactical gear. And standing over him with a gun pressed to the back of his skull was Marco, the man from Lucian's estate. Boss? Marco called out. You good? Get these fucking zip ties off me, Lucian snarled. Someone cut him free. He stumbled to his feet, swaying slightly, and his eyes immediately found Elena still on the ground. He was beside her in 3 strides, the person who'd tackled her rolling away. Are you hurt? Lucian demanded, hands running over her arms, her face, checking for injuries with shaking fingers. I'm okay. I'm okay. Elena grabbed his wrist. You're bleeding. I don't care. He pulled her against his chest so hard it hurt, his arms like iron bands around her. What the hell were you thinking? Coming here? You could have died. So could you. That's different. How? Because I'm supposed to protect you, not the other way around. They were both shouting now, adrenaline and fear bleeding into fury. You don't get to decide that, Elena said. You don't get to throw yourself into danger and expect me to just sit back and let it happen. Yes, I do. That's exactly what I get to do. No. He kissed her, hard, desperate, tasting like blood and fear and absolute possession. Elena kissed him back with equal ferocity, hands fisting in his shirt, not caring that they were surrounded by dead bodies and armed men and a Russian mobster on his knees. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucian pressed his forehead against hers. Never again, he said raggedly. You never risk yourself like that again. Promise me. I can't promise that. Elena, no. If you're in danger, I'm coming for you. That's not negotiable. Something shifted in his expression. Wonder and fear and love so intense it was almost painful. You're going to destroy me, he whispered. Good. Then we're even. A sound behind them. Volkov, still kneeling, laughed bitterly. Kill me, he said. Just get it over with. Lucien pulled away from Elena slowly and turned to face the man who'd threatened her. The transformation was instant and absolute. Gone was the desperate man who'd held her seconds ago. In his place stood someone cold, lethal, capable of horrors Elena didn't want to imagine. No, Lucien said quietly. Death's too easy. He looked at Marco. Take him to the facility. I want him alive, contained. A message to anyone else who thinks they can threaten what's mine. Marco nodded. Understood. And Marco? Lucien's voice dropped. Make sure everyone knows what happens when someone targets Elena Vale. Already handled, boss. Word's spreading as we speak. Volkov was dragged away, still cursing, and Elena tried very hard not to think about what the facility meant. Lucien turned back to her, and his expression softened immediately. Let's go home, he said, extending his hand. Elena took it and let him lead her out of the warehouse of blood and death and into the cold night air. But as they drove away in one of the black SUVs, armed guards flanking them on all sides, Elena finally understood the truth she'd been avoiding for weeks. She hadn't just fallen in love with Lucien Moretti, she'd fallen into his world, and there was no climbing back out. The ride back to the estate was silent, except for the hum of the engine and Elena's ragged breathing. She sat pressed against Lucien's side in the back seat of the SUV, his arm wrapped around her shoulders like a vice, neither of them willing to let go even for a second. Blood had dried on his face, his knuckles were split. Every time the vehicle hit a bump, she felt him wince, though he tried to hide it. You need a doctor, Elena said quietly. I'm fine. You're bleeding. I've had worse. She pulled back to look at him, really look at him, and saw the exhaustion carved into every line of his face. When was the last time you slept? Does it matter? Yes. Lucien's jaw clenched. 3 days, maybe 4. Jesus Christ. I was busy making sure Volkov didn't get to you first. His eyes met hers, raw and desperate. And clearly I failed at that too. You didn't fail. We're both alive. Because you walked into a fucking death trap to save me. His voice was rough. Do you have any idea what seeing you walk through that door did to me? What I thought was going to happen to you? Elena's throat tightened. The same thing I thought when I saw that photo of you with a gun to your head. That's different. Stop saying that. She cupped his bruised face carefully. Stop acting like your life matters less than mine. It does. Not to me. Something cracked in Lucien's expression. He pulled her against him again, burying his face in her hair, and she felt him trembling. They stayed like that for the rest of the drive, holding on to each other like drowning people clutching driftwood. When they finally reached the estate, dawn was breaking across the eastern sky in shades of pink and gold, beautiful and completely at odds with the violence of the night behind them. Marco opened the car door. Medical teams waiting inside. I don't need... Lucien started. Yes, you do, Elena interrupted. And you're going to let them look at you, or I swear to God I'll tie you to a chair myself. Despite everything, his mouth curved slightly. Bossy. You have no idea. The medical team, a private doctor and 2 nurses who clearly worked for Lucien regularly based on their complete lack of reaction to his injuries, set up in one of the downstairs sitting rooms. They cleaned Lucien's wounds with efficient precision while he sat shirtless on a leather chair, jaw clenched against pain he refused to acknowledge. Elena watched from across the room, arms wrapped around herself, still shaking with residual adrenaline. The cut above his eye required 3 stitches. His ribs were bruised but not broken. The split lip would heal on its own. The doctor wrapped his abraded wrists with careful hands and gave him a prescription for pain medication Lucien would probably never take. You need rest, the doctor said. Real rest. At least 48 hours. Noted. Mr. Moretti, I'm serious. Your body can't sustain, but thank you, Dr. Chen. That will be all. The dismissal was absolute. The medical team packed up and left without argument, clearly accustomed to Lucien's stubbornness. When they were gone, Lucien stood slowly, wincing despite his best efforts to hide it, and crossed to where Elena still stood frozen. Come here, he said softly. She went to him, and he wrapped his arms around her, gentler this time, like he was afraid she might shatter. I'm sorry, he said against her hair, for all of it, for getting you involved in my world, for putting you in danger, for... Stop. Elena pulled back to look at him. I made my own choice tonight. I chose to come after you. That's on me, not you. You shouldn't have had to make that choice. But I did, and I'd make it again. She took a shaky breath. I love you. The words hung in the air between them. Lucien went very still, his eyes searching her face like he was trying to memorize every detail. Say that again, he said roughly. I love you. I'm terrified of you and this world you live in and what it's turning me into, but I love you. I can't help it. He kissed her then, careful of his split lip, but no less desperate for it. Elena kissed him back, tasting blood and relief and something that felt dangerously close to forever. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien pressed his forehead against hers. I love you too, he whispered, so much it scares the hell out of me. Good, we can be terrified together. He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was so unexpected, so genuine, that Elena felt tears burning behind her eyes. Come to bed, Lucien said. We both need sleep. Your bed or mine? Does it matter? I guess not. They ended up in his room, a massive space Elena had never entered before, decorated in dark woods and deep blues. The bed could have slept 4 people comfortably. Lucien stripped down to his boxers despite his injuries, and Elena borrowed one of his t-shirts that hung to her knees. They climbed under the covers together, and he pulled her against his chest with his arms wrapped protectively around her. Don't ever scare me like that again, he murmured into her hair. You first. Deal. Elena closed her eyes, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her palm, and let exhaustion finally claim her. She woke to voices arguing somewhere below. Elena blinked at the ceiling, disoriented. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows. Beside her, Lucien was still asleep, his face peaceful in a way she'd never seen before. She should let him rest, should ignore whatever was happening downstairs, but the voices were getting louder. Carefully, Elena slipped out of bed without waking him and padded to the door. She eased it open and moved to the top of the staircase. Telling you it's a problem. That was Marco, sounding angrier than she'd ever heard him. The Bratva isn't going to let this slide. Let them try. A different voice. Cold. Unfamiliar. We have Volkov. That gives us leverage. Leverage? Marco's voice rose. We kidnapped and tortured a high-ranking member of the Russian mob. There's no leveraging our way out of a war. Then we go to war. Have you lost your fucking mind? We're not equipped for a full-scale conflict with the Bratva. They have 3 times our manpower, twice our resources. And we have Lucien Moretti. That counts for something. It counts for a death sentence if we're not careful. Elena's blood ran cold. She crept down a few stairs, staying in the shadows, trying to hear better. What does the boss say? The unfamiliar voice asked. Nothing. He's been asleep for 12 hours. First real rest he's had in weeks. Because of the girl. Yes, because of the girl. There was a pause. Then Marco said quietly, This is her fault. All of it. If Lucien hadn't been so obsessed with protecting her, he never would have walked into Volkov's trap, never would have escalated things to this point. You think she's a liability? I think she's going to get him killed. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She gripped the stair railing, knees suddenly weak. So what do we do? The other voice asked. I don't know. But something's got to change before this whole thing implodes. Footsteps. Elena scrambled back upstairs as quietly as possible, slipping into Lucien's room and closing the door just as someone walked down the hallway below. She stood there breathing hard, Marco's words echoing in her head. She's going to get him killed. Elena looked at Lucien still sleeping peacefully in the massive bed, his bruised face relaxed, his breathing deep and even. Marco was right. As long as she stayed here, Lucien would always be vulnerable. His enemies would always have a target they could use against him. She was a weakness in his armor, a crack in his defenses. And eventually, that crack would be what destroyed him. The realization settled over her like ice water. She couldn't stay. Trachon. Elena waited until evening to tell him. Lucien woke around 6, moving stiffly, but looking more rested than she'd seen him in weeks. They had dinner together, something simple the kitchen staff had prepared, and pretended everything was normal. Pretended the world outside these walls wasn't about to explode into violence. But when they retreated to the library afterward, Elena knew she couldn't put it off any longer. I need to leave, she said quietly. Lucien, who'd been pouring them both whiskey, went very still. What? I need to leave the estate. Leave you. It's not safe. Absolutely not. He set down the decanter with more force than necessary. We've been through this. You're safer here than anywhere else. I'm not talking about my safety. I'm talking about yours. Elena, I heard Marco and some other guy talking today. She forced herself to meet his eyes. He's right. I'm a liability. As long as I'm here, your enemies will use me against you. They'll keep coming after me to get to you, and eventually one of them will succeed. Let them try. Lucian crossed to her. I will burn this entire city to ash before I let anyone touch you. That's exactly the problem, her voice broke. You're willing to start a war over me. You're willing to risk everything you've built, everyone who depends on you because of one person. That's not strategic. That's not smart. That's love. He cupped her face in both hands. That's love, Elena, and I'm not apologizing for it. Tears burned behind her eyes. I can't be the reason you destroy yourself. You're not. You're the reason I want to build something better. How? By fighting the Russian mob? By making enemies of people who won't stop until you're dead? If that's what it takes. It's insane. So is everything about us. Lucien's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. We've been insane from the start. Why stop now? Elena pulled away from him, needing distance to think clearly. Because people are going to die, more people, and it will be my fault. No, it will be Volkov's fault, and the Bratva's fault if they decide to retaliate, but never yours. That's not how guilt works. Then I'll carry it for both of us. She spun to face him. You can't fix everything with grand gestures and declarations, Lucien. This is real. The consequences are real, and I can't watch you die because you were too obsessed with protecting me to protect yourself. So what are you suggesting? That you leave, disappear, go back to your shitty apartment and your crushing debt and your life of barely surviving? His voice was rising now, frustration bleeding through. Because I already fixed those problems, Elena. The apartment's gone. I bought the building and had it condemned. Your debt is paid. Your old life doesn't exist anymore. The floor tilted beneath her feet. You what? I bought your building last week. Had it red tagged for safety violations. Everyone got relocated, compensated. You can't go back there. You destroyed my home? I gave you a better one. You took away my choice. They were shouting now, years of survival instincts and control issues colliding in the middle of his library. I was protecting you, Lucian said through clenched teeth. I didn't ask for your protection. You never ask for anything. You just suffer in silence and pretend you're fine when you're drowning. At least that was my choice to make. A choice that was killing you. Elena pressed her hands over her face, breathing hard. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't help yourself. You see a problem and you throw money and violence at it until it goes away. But I'm not a problem to be solved, Lucian. I'm a person, and I need agency over my own life. The fight drained out of him. He sank into one of the leather chairs, suddenly looking every one of his 32 years. I know, he said quietly. I know I'm controlling. I know I manipulate things to keep you close. I know it's toxic and unhealthy and probably a dozen other things a therapist would have a field day with. He looked up at her. But I can't stop. The thought of losing you makes me physically ill. The idea of you out there, unprotected, vulnerable. It's unbearable. Elena's throat was tight. That's not love. That's possession. It's both. And I'm not going to lie and pretend otherwise. She moved to the window, staring out at the darkening gardens. Security lights were flickering on across the grounds, armed guards changing shifts, a fortress built to keep the world out, or to keep her in. What if I left anyway? She asked quietly. What if I just walked out that door and didn't come back? The silence stretched so long she thought he wasn't going to answer. Finally, I'd let you go. She turned to look at him, surprised. I'd hate it, Lucian continued. I'd spend every day wondering if you were safe. I'd probably have people watching you from a distance to make sure nothing happened to you. But I wouldn't drag you back, wouldn't force you to stay. His eyes met hers. Because as much as I want to keep you here, I want your happiness more, even if that means being without me. Tears were sliding down her face now. You're making this really hard. Good, because walking away from this should be hard. Elena closed her eyes. I don't know what to do. Then stay. At least until things settle with the Bratva. At least until I know you're not in immediate danger. And then what? Then we figure it out. Together. It was such a small thing he was asking. Just stay. Just a little longer. But Elena understood what it really meant. Stay long enough for the obsession to deepen. Stay long enough that leaving became impossible. Stay long enough to lose herself completely in his world. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll stay, for now. Relief flooded Lucien's expression. He stood and crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. Thank you, he murmured against her hair. Elena held on to him and tried not to think about how much easier it would be to leave now versus in a month, or how she probably wouldn't be strong enough to leave at all. 3 days later, everything exploded. Elena was reading in the library when Marco burst through the door, his face ashen. Where's Lucien? He demanded. In his study. Why? What's wrong? Marco was already gone, running down the hallway. Elena abandoned her book and followed, anxiety clawing at her throat. She reached Lucien's study just as Marco was saying, Confirmed. The Bratva knows we have Volkov. They're demanding his release by midnight, or they're coming for us. Lucien looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable. Let them come. Boss, you're not hearing me. They're not sending a small crew. They're mobilizing everything. Every soldier, every resource. This is an all-out assault. How many? Intel says upwards of 200 men, armed to the teeth. They're not playing around. Elena's stomach dropped. 200? Both men turned to look at her. Lucien's jaw clenched. You shouldn't be hearing this, he said. Too late. She moved further into the room. 200 men against how many? We have about 60 on the grounds, Marco said. Another 40 we can call in within an hour. So we're outnumbered 2-1. At least. And they're coming tonight. Yes. Elena looked at Lucien, seeing the calculation happening behind his eyes. You can't win this. I can hold them off long enough to negotiate. With what leverage? They want Volkov back. If you give him up, I look weak. And every other organization in the city will think they can threaten me and get what they want. And if you don't give him up, everyone in this house dies. The blunt statement hung in the air. Marco cleared his throat. There is another option. I'm listening, Lucien said. We give them you. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Explain, Lucien said, voice deadly quiet. Not for real, a trade. You for Volkov. We set it up in neutral territory, make the exchange, but we have shooters in position. The moment Volkov's secured, we extract you. That's insane, Elena said. They'll kill him the second they have him. Not if we have leverage they care about more than revenge. Like what? Marco's eyes flicked to Elena, then away. Understanding crashed over her like ice water. No, absolutely not. It would work, Marco said. They want Lucien dead, but they also want to send a message. If we offer both of you, no. Lucien's voice was absolute. Elena doesn't go anywhere near this. Then we're out of options, boss. We can't fight our way through 200 men. We can't negotiate without leverage. And we can't run because they'll hunt us down anyway. Marco leaned forward. This is the only play that keeps everyone alive. Find another play. There isn't one. Then we fight. And we die. So be it. Lucien slammed his hand on the desk. I'm not using Elena as bait. I'm not putting her in the line of fire. End of discussion. Marco's jaw clenched. You're letting your feelings cloud your judgment. My feelings are the only thing keeping me from putting a bullet in you right now for suggesting I sacrifice her. I'm not suggesting you sacrifice her. I'm suggesting we use her as leverage to save everyone in this house, including her. By putting her in the middle of a hostage exchange with Russian mobsters? By being smart instead of emotional? Enough! Elena's voice cut through their argument. Both men turned to stare at her. Marco's right. Elena, Lucien started. No, listen to me. She moved closer, forcing herself to stay calm despite the terror flooding her system. If we don't do this, everyone dies. You, me, Marco, every guard on this property. All of them have families, children, people who depend on them. I don't care. Yes, you do. You're just too scared to admit it. She took his face in her hands. I trust you to keep me safe. I trust you to make this work. But you have to actually do it instead of letting your fear make decisions. If something happens to you, then we deal with it. Together. Like we have been. Lucien looked at her for a long moment, emotions warring across his face. Finally, he said, I need to think. We don't have time for thinking, Marco said. They'll be here in 8 hours. Then I'll think fast. Get out. Marco left without argument. Elena started to follow, but Lucien caught her wrist. Don't, he said quietly. Don't ask me to risk you. I'm not asking. I'm telling you it's the right move. There has to be another way. There isn't. We both know it. He pulled her against him, holding her so tightly it hurt. I can't lose you. You won't. You don't know that. Neither do you. But standing here arguing about it isn't going to change what needs to happen. She pulled back to look at him. Use me as bait. Set your trap. Get Volkov back to them. And then we end this. And if it goes wrong? Then at least we went down fighting instead of hiding. Lucien's eyes searched her face. Then he kissed her, desperate and claiming and full of fear he couldn't voice. When he pulled away, his expression had shifted into something cold and calculating, the Mafia boss sliding back into place. Get Marco back in here, he said. We're doing this, but we're doing it my way. Look, the plan was insane and probably suicidal, but it was all they had. The exchange would happen at midnight in an abandoned shipyard on the edge of the harbor, neutral ground claimed by neither organization. Lucien and Elena would arrive with Volkov. The Bratva would send their representatives. They'd make the trade. Everyone would walk away. Except Lucien had no intention of letting it go that smoothly. He spent the next 6 hours positioning his entire network. Shooters on nearby rooftops, boats in the harbor, vehicles staged for rapid extraction, every person he trusted armed and ready to move. Elena watched him work from the corner of his study, seeing the transformation from the man who'd held her this morning to the strategic killer who'd built an empire on violence. This was who he really was beneath the expensive suits and careful control. A predator. A weapon. Someone who would burn the world down to protect what was his, and she was choosing to walk into danger beside him anyway. Around 11, Lucien finally looked up from the map spread across his desk. We need to talk about what happens if things go wrong, he said. They won't. Elena, she stood and crossed to him. They won't, because you're too smart and too ruthless to let them, because you have too much to lose. She took his hands. I believe in you, so stop waiting for everything to fall apart and trust yourself. Something shifted in his expression. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you have me anyway. He kissed her forehead, gentle despite everything. If anything happens, if we get separated or things go sideways, you run. You don't look back. You don't try to save me. You just run, and you keep running until you're safe. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are, because I can't do this if I'm worried about you. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she'd never abandon him, but she saw the fear in his eyes and understood what he needed to hear. Okay, she lied. If things go wrong, I'll run. He studied her face for a long moment, clearly not believing her, but accepting it anyway. Let's go end this, he said. Osik. The shipyard was exactly as atmospheric as every crime movie had ever promised. Rusted shipping containers, broken machinery, the smell of salt water and decay hanging heavy in the cold night air. Elena sat in the back of the SUV between Lucien and Marco, Volkov zip-tied and hooded in the seat across from them. 2 more vehicles flanked theirs, all of them rolling slowly through the maze of containers toward the designated meeting point. Remember the plan, Lucien said quietly. His hand found Elena's in the darkness, squeezing tight. Stay close to me. Don't speak unless spoken to. And when I give the signal, I know, Elena interrupted. She could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. The vehicles stopped. Engines shut off. The sudden silence was deafening. Showtime, Marco said, checking his weapon one final time. They climbed out into the cold night. Elena could see lights in the distance. The Bratva's convoy approaching from the opposite direction. At least a dozen vehicles. Maybe more. Christ, Marco muttered. They brought an army. So did we, Lucien said calmly. They're just better hidden. The Bratva vehicles stopped about 50 yards away. Doors opened. Men poured out, armed, organized, moving with military precision. And walking at the center of them, flanked by bodyguards, was a man Elena had only seen in photographs. Maxim Volkov, Dmitri's older brother, the real power behind the Bratva. He was tall, silver-haired like his brother, but where Dmitri had been cruel, Maxim looked coldly efficient. The kind of man who calculated costs and benefits before deciding whether killing you was worth the effort. Lucien Moretti, Maxim called across the distance. His accent was thick, but his English was perfect. You have something that belongs to me. You have a lot of things that belong to other people, Lucien called back. Doesn't mean I'm giving them all back. Brave words for a man outnumbered 5-1. Numbers don't mean much when you're fighting smart instead of hard. Maxim's mouth curved. I like you. It's a shame we have to do this. We don't. You could walk away. Let your brother face consequences for his actions. Everyone goes home alive. And look weak to every organization in this city? I think not. Maxim gestured and his men parted. Someone was dragged forward, a woman, maybe 30, bruised and terrified. Elena's stomach dropped. Do you know who this is? Maxim asked. Lucien's hat tightened on Elena's. No. Svetlana Petrov, one of your accountants. She's been feeding us information for 6 months. He pulled a gun and pressed it to Svetlana's temple. Here's how this works. You give me my brother. I give you your traitor. Everyone walks away. Simple. And the girl? Lucien asked, his voice carefully neutral. What girl? Maxim's eyes slid to Elena. Oh, her. She comes with me. No. Then we all die here tonight. Your choice. The world narrowed to that single moment. Elena felt Lucien's entire body tense beside her, every muscle coiled like a snake about to strike. Counter offer, Lucien said. I give you Dmitri. You give me Svetlana. Elena stays with me, and we call this even. Not good enough. Then we have a problem. Yes, we do. Maxim pulled the trigger. Svetlana's head snapped back, blood spraying. She crumpled to the ground like a puppet with cut strings. Elena gasped, horror flooding through her. That's what happens when you waste my time, Maxim said calmly, as if he hadn't just executed someone in cold blood. Now, do we trade or do I start killing your men one by one until you agree? Lucien's jaw was clenched so hard Elena could see the muscle jumping. He was calculating, weighing options, running through scenarios, and coming up empty. Fine, he said finally. The trade. But it happens simultaneously. Your brother for the girl. No tricks. Agreed. Marco dragged Dmitri Volkov forward, yanking off the hood. Dmitri blinked in the harsh light, looking around wildly, and when he saw his brother, relief flooded his features. On the Bratva side, 2 men grabbed Elena's arms. Wait, she started. It's okay, Lucien said, though his eyes said otherwise. Just walk straight across. Don't run. Don't fight. And when you reach me, I know. They started walking, Elena moving toward the Bratva, Dmitri moving toward Lucien, 50 yards of empty ground between them. 40 yards. 30. Elena's heart was hammering. Something felt wrong. Off. The Bratva soldiers were too relaxed, too confident. 20 yards. Lucien's eyes met hers across the distance, and she saw the exact moment he realized it too. Elena, run! He shouted. Gunfire exploded from everywhere at once. The Bratva soldiers scattered, returning fire. Lucien's hidden shooters opened up from their positions. Muzzle flashes lit the night like lightning. Someone tackled Elena to the ground. She hit the concrete hard, ears ringing, tasting blood. More gunfire. Screaming. The wet sound of bullets hitting flesh. She tried to get up to see where Lucien was, but rough hands grabbed her, dragging her backward toward the Bratva vehicles. No! Elena thrashed, fighting, but whoever had her was too strong. Through the chaos, she caught a glimpse of Lucien fighting hand-to-hand with 2 men, his face covered in blood, his gun lost somewhere in the firefight. Then a hood came down over her head, and she was thrown into the back of a vehicle. Engine roared, tires squealed, and they were moving, driving away from the shipyard, away from Lucien, away from everything. Elena screamed until her throat was raw, but it didn't matter. The Bratva had her, and Lucien couldn't save her this time. They drove for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. When the vehicle finally stopped and the hood was ripped off, Elena found herself in some kind of warehouse. Industrial, abandoned, eerily similar to the place where she'd saved Lucien from Dmitri just days ago. Maxim Volkov stood in front of her, perfectly calm despite the blood splattered across his expensive suit. "Welcome," he said pleasantly. "I apologize for the rough handling. My men can be overzealous." Elena's wrists were zip-tied behind her back. Her shoulder throbbed where she'd hit the ground, but she forced herself to meet his eyes without flinching. "Lucien will kill you for this," she said. "Perhaps, if he survives the next hour." Maxime circled her slowly. "You see, this was never about a trade. It was about breaking him. And the best way to break Lucien Moretti is to take away the only thing he's ever truly loved. He'll come for me. I'm counting on it. This whole facility is rigged to explode. The moment he walks through that door," Maxime snapped his fingers. "Boom. No more Lucien Moretti. No more Moretti Empire. Just ashes and memories." Elena's blood ran cold. "You're insane." "I'm practical. Lucien is too dangerous to leave alive. Too smart to defeat conventionally, so I use his greatest strength against him." He leaned closer. "His love for you. He won't fall for it. He will. Because he can't help himself. Because the thought of you suffering is more unbearable to him than his own death." Maxime straightened. "Men like Lucien always have the same fatal flaw. They think love makes them stronger, but really, it just gives people like me a target." Elena's mind raced. She had to warn Lucien. Had to find a way to contact him before he walked into this trap. But her phone was gone. Her hands were tied, and Maxime's men surrounded her with weapons drawn. "Nothing to say?" Maxime asked. "You won't win," Elena said quietly. "Even if you kill Lucien, his people will come after you. Every single person in his organization will make it their life's mission to destroy you. Then I'll destroy them too. One by one until there's no one left who remembers the Moretti name." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Elena, when Lucien arrives, and he will, tell him I said thank you. Thank you for being stupid enough to love someone. It made this whole thing so much easier." Then he was gone, leaving her alone with armed guards in a warehouse rigged to explode the moment Lucien tried to save her. And Elena finally understood the horrifying truth. There was no way out of this. Not for her, not for Lucien. This was how their story ended. In fire and blood and the ruins of obsession that had burned too hot, too fast, too completely. She closed her eyes and waited for the man she loved to walk into his own execution. Because despite everything, despite the danger, despite the trap, despite knowing it would kill him, Lucien Moretti was going to come for her anyway. That's what love meant in his world, and it was going to destroy them both. Elena had been zip-tied to a metal support beam in the center of the warehouse for 43 minutes when she heard the first explosion. The sound came from somewhere outside, distant but unmistakable. Car bomb, maybe. Or a building going up. Hard to tell. The armed guards around her tensed, fingers tightening on triggers, eyes darting toward the exits. Another explosion, closer this time. Close enough that dust rained down from the rafters. "Boss," one of the guards said into his radio, "we have activity. Multiple." Gunfire cut him off. Not inside the warehouse. Outside. Automatic weapons, lots of them, the sound rolling like thunder. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Lucien was here. The guards scrambled into defensive positions, weapons trained on the doors. 6 men, all armed, all professional, all about to die. Because when Lucien Moretti came for what was his, he didn't knock politely. The main entrance exploded inward in a shower of metal and fire. The blast wave knocked 2 guards off their feet. Before they could recover, figures in tactical gear poured through the smoke, moving fast, shooting faster, precise headshots that dropped the Bratva soldiers before they could return fire. It was over in less than 30 seconds. 6 bodies, no survivors. And standing in the wreckage, covered in blood and soot and rage incarnate, was Lucien. Their eyes met across the warehouse, and Elena saw something crack open in his expression. Relief so intense it was almost painful to witness. "Elena." Her name came out like a prayer and a curse. He crossed the space between them in 5 strides, Marco and 3 other men at his back. His hands shook as he pulled a knife and cut through the zip ties binding her wrists. "Are you hurt?" Lucian demanded, checking her over with frantic hands. "Did they touch you? Did they—" I'm okay. Elena grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. There was a deep gash across his forehead, blood running down the side of his face. His shirt was torn, revealing bruises and what looked like a bullet graze along his ribs. "Jesus Christ, you're bleeding." "Doesn't matter." He pulled her against him so hard she couldn't breathe. "I thought I lost you. When they took you, I thought—" "Lucien, listen to me." Elena pulled back. "This is a trap. The whole building is rigged. Maxime said the moment you walked through the door—" As if summoned by his name, Maxime Volkov's voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Ah, Lucien, right on schedule. I'd say I'm impressed, but honestly, you're painfully predictable." Lucien's entire body went rigid. His hand moved to the gun at his hip. Now, Maxime continued. "No need for violence. Well, no more violence. You've already killed a dozen of my men getting here. Very theatrical." "Show yourself," Lucian snarled. "Why? So you can shoot me?" "I think not. But I will give you a choice. You have 3 minutes before the charges I've placed throughout this building detonate. You can spend those 3 minutes trying to find me, which you won't. I'm in a control room you'll never reach in time. Or you can try to get your precious Elena to safety." A pause. Clock's ticking. Fuck. Marco was already moving, checking walls and support beams. "Boss, he's not bluffing. I can see the charges. Professional work. This whole place is wired." "Can you disarm them?" Lucien asked. "Not in 3 minutes. We need to go. Now." But Lucien wasn't moving. He was staring at the speaker, jaw clenched, something calculating happening behind his eyes. "Lucien," Elena said quietly, "we have to leave. He wants us to run, which means running is the wrong move." "Or it means he's about to blow us up." "No. If he wanted us dead, we'd already be dead." Lucien turned to Marco. "The control room, where would you put it?" "Somewhere with clear sightlines, somewhere defensible." Marco looked around. "Second floor, north corner. That office area with the reinforced windows." "That's where he is." "Boss, even if you're right, we don't have time, then we make time." Lucien looked at Elena. "Can you run?" "Yes, but—" "Good, because this is going to get ugly." He pulled his gun, checked the magazine, and turned to his men. "Marco, take Elena and 2 men. Get her out through the south exit. There should be a vehicle waiting 3 blocks east." "What about you?" Elena demanded. "I'm going to kill Maxim Volkov." "In 2.5 minutes? Are you insane?" "Probably." He kissed her hard and fast. "Go. Now." "I'm not leaving you." "Yes, you are. Because one of us needs to survive this, and it's going to be you." "Lucien, go!" Marco grabbed Elena's arm, pulling her toward the south exit. She fought against him, still reaching for Lucien, watching him disappear up a staircase with 2 of his men following. "Let me go," Elena thrashed. "I can't leave him." "He's right," Marco said grimly, dragging her through the door. "One of you needs to make it out." They burst into the night air. The warehouse district was chaos, fires burning in several locations, bodies scattered across the pavement, the sound of sirens in the distance. Marco shoved Elena toward a black SUV parked in an alley. "Get in." "Not without Lucien. He'll make it." "You don't know that." "I know he's survived worse. Now get in the goddamn car." Elena climbed into the back seat, her entire body shaking. Through the vehicle's windows, she could see the warehouse, dark and silent, except for muzzle flashes lighting up the second-floor windows. Lucien was in there, fighting, bleeding, running out of time, and she was supposed to just sit here and wait. The driver started the engine. "No," Elena said. "Stop." "Ma'am, we have orders." "I don't care about your orders." She reached forward and grabbed the driver's shoulder. "Turn off the car." "Miss Vale." "My name is Elena, and the man I love is about to die in that building. So you can either turn off this car, or I will fight all 3 of you and go back in there anyway. Your choice." Marco stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. "You're as crazy as he is." "Probably. If we die, it's on you." I can live with that. Marco pulled his weapon. Then let's go save the boss. They ran back toward the warehouse just as the 2-minute mark hit. No time for strategy, no time for planning. Just Elena and 3 armed men charging back into the building that was about to explode. The interior was worse than before. More bodies, more blood, smoke thick enough to choke on. Elena could hear gunfire from the 2nd floor, shouting, something crashing. Then Lucian's voice, raw with fury. "You should have let her go!" They took the stairs 3 at a time. The 2nd floor opened into a maze of offices and storage rooms. Following the sound of fighting, they found the control room. The door had been blown off its hinges. Inside, Lucian stood over Maxim Volkov, his gun pressed to the older man's temple. Blood ran from a knife wound in Lucian's shoulder, but his hand was steady. "Lucien!" Elena shouted. He looked up, and pure horror crossed his face. "What are you doing here?" "Saving you." "Where's the detonator?" "There isn't one." Maxim laughed, the sound wet. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "It's on a timer, 90 seconds now, maybe less." "Disarm it," Lucian snarled. "Can't. Once started, can't be stopped. Physics, my friend." Maxim coughed. "We all die here. Together. Poetic, really." "Marco," Lucian said without taking his eyes off Maxim. "Get Elena out, now." "Too late," Marco said, staring at a tablet on the desk. "The charges are networked. The second we try to leave, they blow. We're trapped. Then we find another way." "There is no other way." Elena moved closer, looking at the tablet over Marco's shoulder. The display showed a 3-dimensional map of the warehouse with red dots marking explosive charges. Dozens of them. Enough to level the entire building, and a timer counting down. 73 seconds. "There has to be a manual override," she said. "There is," Maxim wheezed. "Biometric lock. My fingerprint. But I'm afraid I'm not feeling very cooperative." Lucian's finger tightened on the trigger. "Give me one reason not to kill you right now." "Because if I die, my heart stops, and the dead man switch triggers. We explode immediately." Maxim smiled through bloody teeth. "So you can shoot me and we all die, or you can watch the timer run out and we all die. Either way, I win." 60 seconds. Elena's mind raced. There had to be a way out. Had to be something they weren't seeing. The biometric lock. That was the key. "Marco," she said quietly, "can you hack it?" "Not in 60 seconds. "What if you had his fingerprint?" "I'd need the actual finger. The scanner's too sophisticated for a copy." He stopped. Looked at Maxim. Looked at Lucien. "Oh, no," Lucien said. "It's the only way," Elena said. "Absolutely not. We have 50 seconds. I'm not going to—" Lucien broke off, jaw clenched. "There has to be another option." "There isn't, and you know it." Elena moved beside him, looking down at Maxim. "Which finger?" Maxim actually laughed. "Right thumb. But you won't do it. Not in time, not with the—" Lucien shot him through the kneecap. Maxim's scream echoed through the warehouse. Lucien grabbed the older man's right hand, pulled out his knife, and in one brutal motion severed the thumb at the joint. Maxim's scream intensified. Lucien ignored it, grabbing the severed digit and pressing it to the tablet's sensor. The scanner blinked red. Access denied. "Wrong finger," Marco said desperately. "He said right thumb. Try the left." 40 seconds. Lucien grabbed Maxim's left hand, ignoring the man's weakening struggles, and pressed the left thumb to the scanner. Still red. Access denied. "He's lying," Elena said. "It's not a thumb." "We don't have time to try every finger." "Then we guess." Elena looked at Maxim, seeing the cruel amusement in his eyes despite his pain. "It's not his dominant hand. Too obvious. And not a thumb because he told us thumbs. It's misdirection." 30 seconds. "Right hand, index finger," Elena said with sudden certainty. "How do you know?" "I don't. But we're out of time." Lucien looked at her for a split second, then made the call. He grabbed Maxim's right index finger and the knife came down. Blood sprayed. Maxim was barely conscious now, his screams reduced to whimpers. Lucien pressed the severed finger to the scanner. 20 seconds. The tablet blinked. Blinked again. Access granted. "Disarm it!" Elena shouted. Marco's fingers flew across the screen, navigating menus, entering codes, working with desperate speed. 15 seconds. There's a confirmation sequence. Skip it. I can't. It's hard-coded. 10 seconds. Elena grabbed Lucian's hand, their fingers interlacing. If they were going to die, at least they'd die together. 5 seconds. Got it! Marco hit the final button. The timer froze at 0003. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the tablet screen changed to green text. Disarmed. Elena's legs gave out. Lucian caught her, holding her against him as they both sank to the floor. Around them, his men were checking the building, confirming the charges were actually disabled. It's over, Lucian said into her hair. It's finally over. Elena just held on to him, shaking too hard to speak. On the floor a few feet away, Maxim Volkov was barely conscious, blood pooling around his mutilated hands. You won't get away with this. Bratva will come. Let them, Lucian said flatly. He pulled out his phone and made a call. It's done. Maxim Volkov is alive, barely. I'm sending you the location. Bring the Bratva leadership here. All of them. It's time we ended this properly. He hung up and looked down at Maxim. Here's what's going to happen. Your organization's leaders are going to see what I did to you. They're going to understand what happens when someone threatens what's mine. And then they're going to make a choice, peace or extinction. I don't care which. They'll choose war. Then I'll show them war. But this time, I won't be fighting to defend. I'll be fighting to erase every single person who shares your bloodline. Lucian's voice was absolute zero. You took her. You hurt her. You tried to kill us both. And now you're going to be the lesson that teaches everyone else never to make that mistake again. Maxim's eyes widened with understanding and fear. You're not going to kill me, he whispered. No. Death would be mercy, and I'm all out of mercy. But 3 hours later, Elena sat in the back of an SUV outside the warehouse, wrapped in Lucian's jacket, watching as black luxury cars rolled up one by one. The Bratva leadership had arrived. She could see them through the vehicle's tinted windows. Powerful men in expensive suits, faces carved from stone, flanked by bodyguards. They entered the warehouse where Maxim waited, still alive, still suffering, a living example of what happened when you crossed Lucian Moretti. Marco stood outside the vehicle, weapon ready, along with a dozen other armed men. They were taking no chances. This could still go wrong, Elena said quietly. It won't, Lucian replied. He sat beside her, his wounds bandaged by the same medical team that had arrived with his reinforcements. They're pragmatic. They'll see Maxim and understand that continuing this war will cost them more than it's worth. And if they don't, then we finish it tonight, one way or another. Elena looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the exhaustion carved into every line of his face, the weight of violence, the cost of survival. How much longer can you keep doing this? She asked. As long as I have to. That's not an answer. Lucian took her hand, his thumb tracing circles against her palm. I'm tired, Elena. So fucking tired. I've been fighting for so long, I barely remember what peace feels like. But I'll keep fighting as long as necessary to keep you safe, to keep us safe. What if I told you I wanted out? Out of this life, out of this world, out of everything. He was quiet for a long moment. Do you? I don't know. Part of me wants to run as far and fast as possible. The other part knows I'd never make it 3 days without missing you so much it hurt. That's the problem with loving someone in this world. It binds you to the darkness whether you want it or not. Is that what we are? Bound? We're beyond bound. We're fused. I don't know where I end and you begin anymore. Elena rested her head against his shoulder. That should terrify me. Does it? Not as much as it should. They sat in silence, watching the warehouse, waiting to see if tonight would end in peace or bloodshed. 20 minutes later, the Bratva leadership emerged. They walked to their vehicles without looking back, engines starting, convoys rolling away into the night. Marco approached the SUV, opening the door. It's done. They agreed to peace. Full ceasefire. No retaliation. They're taking Maxim back to Russia. What happens to him there is their business. Relief flooded through Elena. So it's really over? This part is, Marco said. But boss, we need to talk about the bigger picture. With the Bratva backing down, the other organizations are going to see an opening. The Chinese, the Italians, maybe the Colombians. They'll test you, see if you're weak. Let them, Lucien said. We'll handle it when it comes. And the girl? Marco asked carefully. Word spread that she's your weakness, that tonight happened because of her. Some of the men are asking questions, saying she's a liability. Lucien's expression went cold. Tell those men that if I hear another word questioning Elena's place in my life, I'll personally put a bullet in their skull. She's not a liability. She's the reason I survived tonight, the reason any of us did. I'll spread the word. Make sure you do, because I'm done justifying what she means to me. Anyone who has a problem with it can find another organization to work for. Marco nodded and walked away. Elena looked at Lucien. You can't threaten your own men over me. I just did. That's going to cause problems. I don't care. They need to understand that you're not negotiable. Not now, not ever. Even if it costs you loyalty? Loyalty built on questioning you isn't loyalty I want. Elena didn't know what to say to that, so instead she kissed him, soft and gentle, and full of everything she couldn't put into words. When they pulled apart, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. Let's go home, he said quietly. Where's home? Wherever you are, Atat. They returned to the estate as the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Elena had been awake for nearly 30 hours. Every muscle ached. Her wrists were raw from the zip ties. She probably looked like hell. But she was alive. They were both alive. Lucien led her upstairs to his room, not hers, a deliberate choice. They showered together, washing away blood and soot and the residue of violence, then collapsed into bed without bothering to dress. Elena curled against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her palm. I thought I lost you, Lucien murmured into her hair. When they took you, when I saw that warehouse, when the timer was counting down, I thought this was it. This was how I'd lose you. But you didn't. This time. What about next time? Or the time after that? His arms tightened around her. How many times can we almost die before our luck runs out? I don't know. But I know I'd rather face death with you than live safely without you. That's insane. So is everything about us. Why stop now? Despite everything, he laughed, a quiet, exhausted sound. You're going to be the death of me. Probably. But you'll die happy. That's not as comforting as you think. Elena tilted her head up to look at him. What happens now? After tonight? Now we rebuild, strengthen our defenses. Make it clear that what happened with the Bratva was a one-time show of mercy. The next organization that tries something won't be so lucky. That's not what I meant. I meant what happens with us. Lucien's eyes searched her face. What do you want to happen? I want normal, or as close to normal as we can get. I want to wake up next to you without wondering if it's the last time. I want dinners that don't get interrupted by violence. I want to finish my degree and become a teacher and have a life that exists outside of this world. You can have all of that. Can I? While living in a fortress surrounded by armed guards? While dating a man who runs a criminal empire? It won't be perfect, but it will be ours. Elena was quiet for a long moment. I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if there's ever a choice between your empire and me, you'll choose your empire. Lucien went very still. What? I'm serious. Your organization employs hundreds of people. Their families depend on you. I can't be the reason all of that falls apart. Elena, promise me, Lucien, because if you don't, I'll always wonder if I'm destroying you by being here. He was quiet for so long she thought he wasn't going to answer. Finally, he said, I can't promise that. Because if it came down to choosing between the Empire and you, I'd choose you every time. I'd burn everything I've built to ash if it meant keeping you safe. That's what I'm afraid of. Then be afraid. Because that's who I am. That's what you mean to me. He cupped her face in both hands. I'm not a good man, Elena. I've never pretended to be. But I'm yours. Completely. Irrevocably. And that's never going to change. Tears burned behind her eyes. You're impossible. So are you. We're a matched set. Elena kissed him then, pouring every complicated emotion into it, love and fear and frustration and desperate hope. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucian said, "Stay with me. Not just tonight. Not just until the next crisis. Stay permanently. Move your life here. Let me take care of you while you finish school. Let us build something together." Are you asking me to I'm asking you to choose this. Choose us. Choose the messy, dangerous, completely insane life we've built together. What if I say no? Then I'll be devastated, but I'll respect it. Elena looked at him, this beautiful, broken, dangerous man who had invaded her life like a hurricane and refused to leave, and realized the choice had already been made. She'd made it the night she walked into that warehouse to save him. Made it when she'd chosen to come back to this estate. Made it every single time she'd chosen him over safety, over sanity, over everything else. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. I'll stay. I'll finish school. I'll let you take care of me. I'll choose us." She took a shaky breath. "But you have to promise me something in return." "Name it. Promise me you'll try. Try to step back from the violence when you can. Try to build something legitimate alongside the Empire. Try to be more than just the monster everyone expects you to be." Lucian's eyes were intense. "For you? I'll try. That's all I'm asking." He kissed her forehead, gentle despite the desperate way he held her. "Get some sleep. We'll figure out the details later." Elena closed her eyes, feeling exhaustion finally dragging her under. Just before sleep claimed her, she murmured, "I love you." "I love you too," Lucian replied. "More than anything." She believed him. God help them both, she believed him. Elena woke to darkness and the sound of her phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. She blinked at the ceiling, disoriented. Beside her, Lucien was dead asleep, his breathing deep and even. She'd never seen him sleep this deeply. The exhaustion must have finally caught up to him. Her phone buzzed again. She reached for it carefully, not wanting to wake him, and saw dozens of missed calls and texts, all from Marco. Her stomach dropped. She opened the most recent message. "Elena, we have a problem. Call me immediately. Don't tell Lucien yet." "Don't tell Lucien? What the hell?" Elena slipped out of bed, grabbed Lucien's shirt from the floor, and moved into the hallway. She closed the bedroom door quietly behind her and called Marco. He answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" "Hallway outside Lucien's room." "What's going on? Is he awake?" "No, he's exhausted. I don't want to wake him unless it's urgent." Marco was quiet for a moment. "It's urgent, but you need to hear this first. Alone." Ice flooded Elena's veins. "Tell me." "The Bratva. They didn't actually agree to peace." "What? But you said—" "They lied. The whole meeting was theater. They took Maxim back to Russia, not to punish him, but to plan retaliation. And Elena—" His voice dropped. "They're not coming after Lucien." Understanding crashed over her. "They're coming after me." "Yes. Intel says they're sending a hit squad, professional, ruthless. They've been tracking your movements, learning your patterns. They know you leave the estate sometimes for errands, know you're planning to go back to school." "When?" "Could be days, could be hours. We don't know." Elena's hand shook. "So what do I do?" "That's the problem. Lucien will want to lock you down, keep you in the estate 24/7, surround you with so much security you can't breathe, and that's exactly what they want. They want me to be a prisoner, want him to be so focused on protecting me that he can't run his empire." Elena closed her eyes. "It's a psychological attack." "Exactly. They know they can't beat him in open war, so they're trying to destroy him from the inside by making you the weakness that consumes him." "What do I do, Marco?" "That's your call." "But Elena—" He took a breath. "If you really love him, if you want what's best for him, you might need to consider leaving, disappearing. Let him think you walked away. Give him a chance to move on." "He'd never move on." "He might if he thought you chose to leave, if he thought you couldn't handle this life." Elena's throat was tight. "You're asking me to break his heart to save his life?" "I'm asking you to make the hard choice, because someone has to." She stood there in the dark hallway, wearing Lucien's shirt, knowing he was sleeping peacefully 20 feet away, completely unaware that the woman he loved was about to be forced into an impossible decision. Stay and become the weakness that destroyed him, or leave and destroy him a different way. Behind her, the bedroom door opened. Lucian stood there, shirtless and sleep-rumpled, his eyes immediately finding hers in the darkness. "What's wrong?" he asked. Elena looked at him, this beautiful, dangerous, completely devoted man, and felt her heart crack wide open. "We need to talk," she said quietly. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that nothing would ever be the same after this conversation. Lucian stood in the doorway of his bedroom, the dim hallway light casting shadows across his face, and Elena saw the exact moment he understood something was terribly wrong. "What happened?" His voice was still rough with sleep, but his eyes had sharpened, the predator waking beneath the exhaustion. Elena's hand tightened around her phone. Marco was still on the line, silent, waiting. "I need to call you back," she said quietly into the phone. "Elena, don't tell him without me there. Let me—" She hung up. Lucien crossed to her in 3 strides. "Who was that?" "Marco." "At 4 in the morning? What did he say?" Elena took a breath, steadying herself. The Bratva lied. They're not honoring the ceasefire. They're planning retaliation. She watched the information process across his face, the initial flash of rage, then calculation, then grim acceptance. He'd probably expected this. Men like Maxim Volkov didn't surrender easily. "How long do we have?" Lucien asked. "Days, maybe. They're sending professionals." "Then we prepare, double security, lock down the estate. I'll have Marco—" "They're not coming after you, Lucien." He stopped mid-sentence. "What?" "They're coming after me. It's a psychological operation. They want to make me the weakness that consumes you. Want you so focused on protecting me that you can't function, can't lead, can't think straight." Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed immediately by fury so intense Elena took an involuntary step back. "No," Lucien said flatly. "Absolutely not. They don't get to use you as a weapon against me. They already are. And as long as I'm here, they always will be. Then we eliminate them. Every single person connected to the Bratva. I'll burn Russia to the ground if I have to." "And how many of your people die in that war? How many families lose fathers and brothers and sons because you're fighting to protect one person?" "I don't care." "I do." Elena's voice rose. "I care, Lucien. Those people have lives, children, futures, and you're willing to sacrifice all of them for me." "Yes," without hesitation. The absolute certainty in his voice should have been romantic. Instead, it terrified her. "That's not love," Elena said quietly. "That's obsession, and it's going to destroy both of us." Lucian's jaw clenched. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe Marco was right. Maybe the best thing I can do for you is leave. Disappear. Let you tell everyone I couldn't handle this life and walked away. Give your enemies nothing to target." "No." "Lucien, no." He grabbed her shoulders, not roughly, but with desperate intensity. "You're not leaving. I won't let you." "You can't stop me." "Watch me." They stared at each other, both breathing hard, the space between them crackling with anger and fear and love so intense it felt like suffocation. "You promised me," Elena said. "You promised if I wanted to leave, you'd let me go." "That was before the Bratva. Before I almost lost you. Before I understood exactly how far I'd go to keep you." His hands tightened on her shoulders. "I can't let you walk away, Elena. It would kill me. And watching you destroy yourself and everyone around you to protect me is killing me." Tears burned her eyes. "Don't you see? They've already won. They've turned me into exactly what they wanted, the thing that breaks you. You're not breaking me. You're the only thing holding me together. That's the problem. You shouldn't need me to hold you together. You should be strong enough on your own. I'm not. I never have been. I've just been good at pretending." Lucian's voice cracked. "You want the truth? Before you, I was empty, going through motions, running an empire I didn't give a shit about because it was expected, because my father built it and I inherited it, and that was just what I did. But I wasn't living, I was existing. And then I saw you at that airport, and for the first time in 32 years, I wanted something, really wanted it. Wanted you so badly it physically hurt. That's not healthy. I don't care if it's healthy. I care that it's real, that you made me feel human again, that every day with you is worth 1,000 days without you. He pulled her closer. So no, I'm not letting you leave. I'm not letting the Bratva or anyone else take you from me. And if that makes me a monster, fine. I'll be a monster, as long as I'm your monster. Elena's tears were falling freely now. You're not listening to me. Because you're wrong. You think leaving will save me, but it won't. It will destroy me in a different way, slower, more painful. Every day without you will be a reminder of what I lost. You'll move on eventually. No, I won't. Because I can't. Because you're it for me, Elena. The only woman I will ever love. The only person I will ever choose over the Empire, over logic, over my own survival. His forehead pressed against hers. So if you want to leave, if you really truly want to walk away from this, you're going to have to do it while I'm standing right here begging you not to. Elena closed her eyes, feeling his breath against her face, his hands trembling slightly on her shoulders. She could leave, could walk out that door and never look back, could save him from the war that was coming. But Marco's voice echoed in her head. If you really love him, you might need to consider leaving. Did she love him enough to destroy him to save him? Or did she love him enough to stay and face whatever came next together? I don't know what to do, Elena whispered. Then let me decide. Let me choose this. Choose you. Choose us, no matter the cost. The cost might be everything. Then I'll pay it. Gladly. Elena pulled back to look at him, seeing the desperation and fierce devotion written in every line of his face. If I stay, she said slowly, things have to change. No more making decisions about my life without asking me first. No more destroying my options because you think you know better. I need agency, Lucian. Real agency, not the illusion of choice. Done. And you have to promise me that if there's a way to end this without mass casualties, if there's a diplomatic solution that doesn't involve burning Russia to the ground, you'll at least consider it. His jaw clenched, but he nodded. I'll consider it. That's all I'm asking. Lucian exhaled shakily. So you're staying? I'm staying, but on one condition. Anything. We face this together. No more trying to protect me by keeping me in the dark. No more sending me away while you handle the dangerous parts. If we're doing this, we're doing it as partners. Elena, I can't put you in danger, Shamam. I'm already in danger. The Bratva already wants me dead. Keeping me locked in this estate doesn't change that. It just makes me a prisoner instead of a partner. She took his face in both hands. Trust me. Trust that I'm strong enough to stand beside you instead of hiding behind you. Lucian looked at her for a long moment, conflict playing across his features. Finally, he said, Okay, partners. But if things go sideways, then we handle it together. He kissed her then, desperate and relieved and full of promises neither of them was sure they could keep. When they finally broke apart, Elena said, We should call Marco back, figure out our next move. In a minute. Lucian pulled her against his chest, holding her like he was afraid she might evaporate. Just let me hold you for one more minute. Elena wrapped her arms around him and let herself be held, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her palm. They were about to walk into fire, but at least they'd burn together. By dawn, Lucien's entire inner circle had assembled in the estate's main conference room, a space Elena had never seen before, dominated by a massive table and screens showing surveillance feeds from across the city. Marco stood at the head of the table, looking like he hadn't slept. When Elena entered with Lucien, his eyes widened slightly. You told him, Marco said. She told me, Lucien confirmed, and we're handling it together. Bring everyone up to speed. Marco exchanged glances with the other men around the table, all hard-faced, all dangerous, all clearly uncertain about Elena's presence. With all respect, boss, one of them said carefully. Is it wise to discuss strategy in front of— Finish that sentence and you're fired, Lucien interrupted. Elena stays. She's part of this. Anyone have a problem with that? Silence. Good. Marco, the intel. Marco pulled up images on the main screen. The Bratva is sending a 6-person team, ex-military, specialized in kidnapping and interrogation. They're flying into the city tomorrow night, which gives us roughly 36 hours to prepare. How do we know they're coming tomorrow? Elena asked. We have someone inside their organization. Low level, but reliable. He confirmed the timeline. And the target? Lucien's voice was ice. Elena, they want her alive. The plan is to grab her, use her as leverage to get you to surrender territory and resources, then kill you both anyway. Ambitious, one of the other men muttered. Stupid, Lucien corrected. They're assuming we'll play defensively. Wait for them to come to us. Shouldn't we? Elena asked. No, because defensive means they choose the time and place. Offensive means we do. Lucien looked at Marco. You said they're flying in tomorrow night. Which airport? Private airstrip outside the city. They've rented a hangar. Then that's where we hit them, before they ever get close to Elena. Boss, that's risky. We'd be attacking on unfamiliar ground, better than letting them set up and plan their move. Lucien's eyes were calculating. We take them out the moment they land, fast, clean, surgical. Send a message to the Bratva that Elena is off limits. And if killing these 6 just makes them send 12 more? Elena asked quietly. Then we kill those 12, and the next group, and the next, until they understand that the cost of coming after you is more than they're willing to pay. Elena's stomach turned. This was the man she'd fallen in love with, capable of casual discussion about mass murder like it was a business decision, because to him, it was. There's another option, Marco said carefully. I'm listening. We use Elena as bait. Every man in the room went silent. Lucien's expression turned deadly. Explain, he said, voice dangerously quiet. Very carefully. We let them think they're succeeding. Let Elena be somewhere they can grab her, but we control the location, the timing, everything. We have shooters in position. The moment they make their move, we eliminate them, and anyone backing them up. Absolutely not. It's the smartest play, but I said no. Lucien, Elena's voice cut through the tension. Let him finish. Elena, let him finish. Marco continued quickly. It's not actually dangerous if we do it right. Elena wears a tracker, body armor under her clothes. We have snipers covering every angle. She's never actually in real danger, but the Bratva thinks she is. And when we take out their team, we make sure at least one survives to report back what happened. Why? Elena asked. Because a story is more powerful than a body count. If one of them survives and tells the Bratva leadership exactly how badly they failed, how thoroughly we anticipated their move, how completely we owned them, that's demoralizing. That makes them think twice before trying again. It was smart. Brutal, but smart. Elena looked at Lucien and saw the internal war playing across his face. Strategy versus emotion. Logic versus fear. No, he said finally. I won't use her as bait. Find another way. There is no other way then we go with my plan. We hit them at the airstrip. Final decision. Marco's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Understood. The meeting continued for another hour, Lucien and his men discussing tactics and positions and contingencies. Elena listened, learning the vocabulary of violence, understanding for the first time exactly how Lucien's world operated. When they finally broke, the other men filed out, leaving just Elena, Lucien, and Marco. You're making a mistake, Marco said quietly. The airstrip plan is too risky, too many variables we can't control. And using Elena as bait isn't risky? Not if we do it right. There is no doing it right when it comes to putting her in danger. Marco looked at Elena. Talk to him. Make him see reason. Don't, Lucien warned. Don't put her in the middle of this. She's already in the middle of this. She has been since the moment you decided to pursue her. Marco's voice was hard. And now we all have to live with the consequences. He walked out, leaving the words hanging in the air. Lucien turned to Elena, and she saw the guilt written in his expression. He's not wrong, Lucien said quietly. This is my fault. I brought you into this world, made you a target. If I just left you alone that night at the airport, then I'd still be drowning in debt and exhaustion, working myself to death for minimum wage. Elena moved closer to him. Yes, your world is dangerous. Yes, I'm a target now, but I'm also alive in a way I haven't been in years. I have a future. I have hope. I have you. She took his hands. So stop apologizing for giving me a life worth protecting. Even if protecting it means violence. Even then. Lucien pulled her against him, and they stood there in the empty conference room, holding each other while the weight of what was coming pressed down around them. Tomorrow night, Lucien said against her hair. One way or another, this ends tomorrow night. Elena closed her eyes and hoped he was right. Kid. The next 36 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Elena watched Lucien and his men move with military precision, weapons checked and rechecked, vehicles staged, communications equipment tested. The estate transformed into a war camp, every person focused on the single goal of eliminating the Bratva threat. She tried to help where she could, but mostly she stayed out of the way, feeling useless and increasingly anxious. The night before the operation, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in Lucien's bed, staring at the ceiling while he worked in his study, planning and replanning every detail. Around 3 a.m, she gave up and went to find him. He was standing in front of a massive map of the airstrip, marking positions with different colored pins. He looked exhausted, eyes bloodshot, jaw shadowed with stubble, the cut on his forehead from the warehouse still visible beneath the stitches. "You should be sleeping," Elena said from the doorway. "So should you." "Can't, too wired." Lucien set down the pins and turned to face her. "Second thoughts?" "About staying? No. About tomorrow? Yes." She moved into the room. "What if something goes wrong?" "It won't." "But what if it does?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "If something goes wrong, Marco knows what to do. He'll get you out, keep you safe. Make sure you have everything you need." "I don't want Marco. I want you." "I know, but if I don't make it, don't." Elena pressed a finger to his lips. "Don't talk like that, like you're already dead. I'm being practical. You're being fatalistic. There's a difference." Lucien caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "I've made a lot of enemies over the years, Elena. Done things I'm not proud of, hurt people who probably didn't deserve it. If tomorrow is when that debt comes due, it's not. Because you're too smart and too ruthless to let it be." She moved closer. "Stop planning your own funeral and come to bed. I have work. The work will still be here in 5 hours. You won't be any good to anyone if you're too exhausted to think straight." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. 5 hours. Then we finish this." They went back to bed, and this time when Elena curled against his chest, Lucien wrapped his arms around her and actually closed his eyes. She felt him relax by degrees, muscles loosening, breathing deepening, finally letting go of the control that defined him. "I love you," Elena whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Lucien murmured, already half asleep. "More than anything." She believed him, and she prayed it would be enough to keep them both alive. The next evening arrived with brutal efficiency. Elena stood in Lucien's bedroom while he strapped on body armor and checked his weapons with practiced ease. She'd never seen him like this, fully in his element, transformed from the man who cooked her breakfast into the predator who'd built an empire on violence. "Stay here," Lucien said, holstering his gun. "Marco's leaving 2 men with you. They're under orders to get you out if anything goes wrong." "What if I don't want to stay here?" "Elena, I mean it. What if I want to come with you?" "Absolutely not." "Why? You said we're partners." "Partners doesn't mean I let you walk into a firefight." He cupped her face. "Please, let me do this without worrying about you getting shot." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to insist on being there, but she saw the fear beneath his determination and understood what he needed. "Okay," she said quietly, "I'll stay. But you come back to me. That's not negotiable." "I always come back to you." He kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of unspoken promises. When he pulled away, his eyes were molten. "This time tomorrow, this is over," Lucien said, "and we can finally breathe. I'm holding you to that." "Good." He left, and Elena stood at the bedroom window watching his convoy roll down the driveway toward the gates. Marco was in the lead vehicle, Lucien in the second, a dozen armed men distributed between 5 SUVs, an army going to war. She watched until the taillights disappeared into the darkness, then turned away from the window. The 2 guards Lucien had left stood outside her door, young guys, both nervous, both probably wishing they were with the main force instead of babysitting duty. Elena paced the bedroom, too anxious to sit still. Every minute felt like an hour. Every sound made her jump. She checked her phone obsessively. No messages, no updates. Around 8 o'clock, her phone finally buzzed. Marco. In position. Radio silence from here. We'll update when it's done. Elena typed back. Keep him safe. The response came 30 seconds later. Always. Then nothing. The silence was unbearable. Elena tried to distract herself, turned on the television, tried to read, attempted to eat the dinner the kitchen staff had prepared. Nothing worked. Her mind kept conjuring worst-case scenarios. Lucien bleeding out on concrete, ambushed, outnumbered, dying alone while she sat safe in his mansion. Around 9:30, she heard shouting from downstairs. Elena's blood went cold. She moved to her door, pressing her ear against it. More shouting, crashes, gunfire. Oh, God. One of her guards burst into the room, his young face pale. We have to go. Now. What's happening? They're here. Inside the estate. I don't know how, but they're here. Who's here? The Bratva. They sent a second team. While everyone was at the airstrip, they hit the estate. It was a diversion. The whole thing had been a diversion to draw Lucien and his men away. How many? Elena demanded. At least a dozen. Maybe more. We need to get you to the panic room. Gunfire erupted directly outside her door. The guard spun, raising his weapon, but bullets tore through the wood, punching through his chest before he could fire. He dropped, dead before he hit the floor. Elena screamed, scrambling backward. The door exploded inward. Men poured through, Russian, armed, moving with professional efficiency. One of them grabbed Elena before she could run, zip-tying her wrists while another pressed a gun to her temple. Scream, and I kill you, he said in heavily accented English. Elena's mind was racing. Lucien was at the airstrip, miles away, engaged with a threat that didn't exist. This was it. This was how they'd planned it all along. She was dragged downstairs through hallways littered with bodies, guards who'd fought and died trying to protect her. The estate that had felt like a fortress was revealed as exactly what it had always been, a cage with pretty bars. They shoved her into the back of a van waiting in the circular driveway. 3 men climbed in with her, weapons trained on her chest. Where are you taking me? Elena asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Somewhere your boyfriend will come looking for you, one of them replied. And when he does, we'll be waiting. The van doors slammed shut, and they pulled away from the estate at high speed. Elena closed her eyes, feeling tears of rage and fear sliding down her face. She'd stayed. She'd chosen this life, chosen Lucien, and now she was going to die for it. They drove for 20 minutes before pulling into what looked like an abandoned industrial complex. Elena was dragged out of the van and through a maze of rusted machinery and broken equipment until they reached a large open space. Maxim Volkov stood in the center, his hands bandaged, but his eyes bright with cruel amusement. Hello again, Elena, he said pleasantly. We seem to keep meeting under unfortunate circumstances. You're supposed to be in Russia, Elena said. I was. Briefly. Long enough to plan this properly. He circled her slowly. You see, the first attempt was sloppy, emotional. My brother Dmitri let his rage cloud his judgment, but me? I'm patient, strategic. I waited until Lucian's guard was down, until he thought he'd won. He'll kill you for this. Perhaps, if he makes it here alive. Maxime smiled. You see, the team at the airstrip? They're not there to grab them. They're there to keep them busy, distracted, while we spring the real trap here. And when Lucien arrives, and he will, because he can't help himself, we'll be ready. Understanding crashed over Elena. This wasn't about kidnapping her. This was about using her to draw Lucien into a kill box. How many men do you have? She asked. Enough. More than enough to handle whatever force he brings. Maxime's expression hardened. Your boyfriend has caused me considerable pain and embarrassment, Elena. Cost me territory, money, reputation. Tonight, I take all of that back, and I do it by breaking him completely before I kill him. He won't come alone. I'm counting on it. The more men he brings, the more I get to destroy. It's almost poetic. Elena's mind raced. She had to warn Lucien, had to find a way to... Her phone. They'd taken her hands but not searched her thoroughly. Her phone was still in her jacket pocket. If she could just get to it. Send one message. What now? Elena asked, trying to buy time. You just wait here for him to show up? More or less, though first, Maxime gestured to one of his men. Make sure she can't warn him. Rough hands searched her, finding the phone immediately. They pulled it out, and Maxime took it, looking at the screen. 17 missed calls from your beloved, he noted. How touching. Let's give him an update, shall we? He opened the camera app, pointed it at Elena, and took a photo. Then he sent it to Lucien with a message. Come alone, or she dies screaming. There, Maxime said, pocketing the phone. Now we wait. Elena was zip-tied to a metal chair in the center of the open space. Maxime's men took up positions around the perimeter, on catwalks, behind machinery, in sniper nests. A perfect ambush. Lucien was walking into a massacre, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. He arrived exactly 23 minutes later. Elena heard the vehicles before she saw them. Multiple engines, approaching fast. The Bratva soldiers tensed, fingers on triggers, waiting for the signal. Then Lucien's voice echoed through the industrial complex, amplified somehow. I'm here! Let her go! Come inside, Maxime called back. Alone, or I start removing her fingers. A pause, then, I'm coming in. Weapons down. Lucien, no! Elena screamed. It's a trap! They have... One of the guards hit her hard enough that stars exploded across her vision. Quiet, Maxime hissed. The main entrance opened. Lucien walked through, hands raised, no visible weapons. He looked like he'd run through hell to get here. Covered in soot and blood, his armor cracked, his eyes wild. But the moment he saw Elena, relief flooded his features. I'm here, he said. Let her go. Let her go. Maxime laughed. Why would I do that when keeping her is so much more fun? He gestured, and his men emerged from their hiding spots, dozens of them, all armed, all pointed at Lucien. Understanding crossed Lucien's face. You planned this from the beginning. Of course. Did you really think I'd accept defeat so easily? That the Bratva would simply walk away? Maxime shook his head. You're smart, Lucien, but you're also predictable. You love her. And love makes men stupid. You're right, Lucien said quietly. Love does make men stupid, which is why I knew you'd never actually honor the ceasefire. Why I've been planning for this moment since you left with your brother. Maxime's smile faltered. What? Lucien looked up at the rafters, at the sniper positions, at the places where the Bratva soldiers waited. Marco, now! The industrial complex erupted. Explosions tore through support columns. The catwalk where 3 snipers waited collapsed in a shower of sparks and screaming metal. Smoke grenades detonated, filling the space with thick gray fog. And then Lucien's men poured in from every direction, not from the main entrance, but from secondary access points Elena hadn't even known existed. They moved through the smoke like ghosts, muzzle flashes lighting the chaos, taking out Bratva soldiers with brutal efficiency. Lucien dove toward Elena, cutting through her zip ties with a knife he'd apparently hidden somewhere. Can you run? Yes. Then run. Marco's outside with a vehicle. Go. Not without you. Go! Another explosion. Closer this time. The world was fire and smoke and screaming. Elena ran, staying low, following the path Lucien had indicated. Behind her she could hear gunfire intensifying, men dying, the sounds of close-quarters combat. She burst through a side door and found Marco waiting beside an SUV, engine running. Where's Lucien? He demanded. Still inside. He told me to run. Get in. I'll go back for him. No, I'm going back. Elena, I'm not leaving him. She turned and ran back toward the building before Marco could stop her. The interior was worse than before. Bodies everywhere. The smoke so thick she could barely see. Elena pulled her jacket over her mouth and pushed forward, following the sound of fighting. She found Lucien and Maxime locked in hand-to-hand combat near the center of the space. Both men were bleeding, both exhausted, both fighting with the desperation of men who understood only one of them was leaving alive. Maxime had a knife. Lucien had his bare hands in absolute fury. Elena watched as Lucien caught Maxime's wrist, mid-stab, twisted hard enough that bones cracked, and drove his elbow into the older man's face. Maxime staggered, and Lucien pressed the advantage, raining blows that were more brutality than technique. This wasn't strategy. This was rage. "Lucien!" Elena screamed. He froze, fist raised for another strike. Maxime lay beneath him, barely conscious, blood pouring from his nose and mouth. "It's over," Elena said. "He's done. Let's go." Lucien looked down at Maxime, something dark and vicious playing across his face. For a moment, she thought he might kill him anyway. Then he stood, grabbing Maxime by the collar and dragging him toward the exit. "Marco!" he shouted. "I'm bringing him out!" They stumbled into the night air together. Lucien, Elena, and a barely alive Maxim Volkov. The industrial complex burned behind them, flames leaping toward the sky, the sound of secondary explosions still echoing. Marco had the SUV ready. They threw Maxim in the back, climbed in after him, and the vehicle peeled away as the entire building collapsed in a final massive explosion. Nobody spoke during the drive back to the estate. Lucien held Elena against his chest, his arms like iron bands, his heartbeat frantic beneath her palm. In the back seat, Maxim drifted in and out of consciousness, groaning. When they finally pulled through the estate gates, dawn was breaking across the eastern sky. The estate looked like a war zone, bodies of Bratva soldiers scattered across the grounds, windows shattered, bullet holes pockmarking the stone walls. But it was over. It was finally over. They gathered in the library, Elena, Lucien, Marco, and what was left of Lucien's inner circle. Maxime Volkov was zip-tied to a chair in the center of the room, conscious but defeated. "What do we do with him?" Marco asked. "That's not my decision to make," Lucien said quietly. He looked at Elena. "You're the one he used as bait, the one he terrorized. This is your choice." Elena stared at Maxime. This man had ordered her kidnapping, had planned Lucien's death, had killed dozens of people in pursuit of revenge. She should want him dead, should demand blood for blood. Instead, she felt only exhaustion. "Send him back to Russia," Elena said. "Let the Bratva leadership see what happened when they sent him after us. Let them understand that we could have killed him, but chose mercy instead." "Mercy?" Maxime spat blood. "You call this mercy?" "I call it pragmatism," Elena said coldly. "Killing you makes you a martyr, sends a message that we're afraid of retaliation. Sending you back alive, broken, defeated, humiliated, that sends a different message, that we're strong enough to choose mercy, and confident enough that you're no longer a threat." Maxime's face twisted. The Bratva will do nothing, because they've lost too many men, too many resources, and gain nothing in return. And if they're smart, they'll take the lesson and never come after us again. Elena looked at Lucien. "But if I'm wrong, if sending him back just means they'll try again, then we do it your way next time." Lucien's eyes searched her face. Then he nodded. "Put him on a plane to Moscow. Make sure the Bratva leadership knows exactly what happened here. And make sure they understand this was mercy. They won't get it twice." Marco organized the transport. Within 2 hours, Maxime Volkov was on a private jet heading back to Russia, alive but destroyed. When everyone else had left, Elena and Lucien finally found themselves alone in the library. They stood there, both covered in blood and soot and the residue of violence, just looking at each other. "We survived," Elena said quietly. "Barely. But we did. Together." Lucien crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. "You were right about everything, about partnership, about not making decisions alone, about—" His voice cracked. "When I saw you tied to that chair, knowing I'd walked you into danger, that I'd made you a target—" "Stop. This wasn't your fault. This was Maxime's choice, his violence, his vendetta, that I triggered by falling in love with you. No, that he triggered by being a monster who couldn't accept defeat." Elena pulled back to look at him. "And even knowing everything that happened, all the fear and violence and near-death experiences, I'd still choose you. I'd still choose us." "Why?" "Because before you, I was surviving, barely. And now I'm living, Really living. Yes, your world is dangerous. Yes, I'm a target. But I'd rather live one real, terrifying, beautiful day with you than 1,000 safe, empty days without you. Lucien's eyes were wet. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you have me anyway. He kissed her then, gentle despite everything, full of gratitude and relief and love so intense it made her chest ache. When they finally broke apart, Elena said, "What happens now?" "Now we rebuild, repair the damage, strengthen our defenses, make it clear this was a one-time show of mercy. And after that, Lucien took her face in both hands. After that, we figure out how to build a life together. You finish school, become the teacher you always wanted to be. I start transitioning the empire into something more legitimate. We find a way to have both, your light and my darkness, your future and my past." That's ambitious. So are we. Elena smiled despite her exhaustion. Yeah, we are. Band. 6 months later, Elena Vale stood in front of her first classroom. 23 seventh graders stared back at her with varying degrees of interest and boredom. She'd prepared for this moment for years. The lesson plans, the teaching philosophy, the carefully cultivated patience. What she hadn't prepared for was the armed guard standing outside the classroom door, or the bulletproof windows Lucien had insisted on installing, or the panic button hidden beneath her desk that connected directly to his security team. But those were just details, background noise in the life they'd built together. "Good morning, everyone," Elena said, and felt a thrill run through her. "Welcome to English literature. Let's start with introductions. Tell me your name and one book that changed your life." The students groaned, but they complied. And as Elena moved through the room, listening to their answers, guiding discussions, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Peace. After school, she drove back to the estate in the armored SUV Lucien provided, waving to security as she passed through the gates. The mansion looked different now. Less fortress, more home. They'd redecorated together over the months, adding warmth where there had been cold stone. She found Lucien in his study, on the phone negotiating some business deal. When he saw her, his expression transformed from cold calculation to genuine warmth. He wrapped up the call quickly and crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. "How was your first day?" he asked. "Terrifying, exhilarating, perfect. Tell me everything." They spent the next hour on the couch in his study while Elena talked about her students, her classroom, the small victories and frustrations of her first day teaching. Lucien listened with complete attention, asking questions, offering observations, genuinely invested in this part of her life that had nothing to do with his empire. This was who they were now. Teacher and crime boss. Darkness and light. Two broken people who'd found each other and refused to let go despite every reason they should have. "Marco called earlier," Lucien said eventually. "The Bratva honored the ceasefire. No movements against us. No threats. They're actually backing out of 3 territories to avoid conflict. So it worked. Mercy was the right choice." "Your choice was the right choice. If it had been up to me, Maxime would be dead and we'd still be at war." "But he's not, and we're not. Growth." Elena kissed him softly. "See, you can be more than the monster everyone expects. Only with you. Only because of you. I'll take it." They had dinner together, something simple that Lucien cooked himself. Afterward, Elena worked on lesson plans while Lucien handled business calls, the two of them existing in comfortable silence. Around 11, Elena set aside her laptop and moved to where Lucien sat behind his desk. "Come to bed," she said. "I have work. The work will still be here tomorrow. You won't be any good to anyone if you're exhausted." He smiled, remembering. "You've used that line before." "It worked then. It'll work now." She took his hand. "Come on, let's get some sleep." They went upstairs together, and Elena changed into one of Lucien's t-shirts while he stripped down to boxers. They climbed into bed, the same bed where they'd held each other after near-death experiences, where they'd planned strategy, where they'd built intimacy, piece by careful piece. "Thank you," Lucien said into the darkness. "For what? For staying, for choosing this, for believing I could be more than what I was. You don't have to thank me for loving you. I know. But I want to anyway." Elena curled against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her palm. "Do you ever regret it? Falling in love with me, all the chaos it caused? Never, not for 1 second. Even when I almost got you killed? Even then, because you also saved my life. Not just physically, though you did that too, but you made me want to be better, want to build something worth protecting instead of just destroying what threatens me. Elena's throat was tight. I love you so much. I love you too, more than anything. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, breathing in sync. Outside the mansion walls, the world continued its dangerous dance. Criminal empires rising and falling, violence lurking in shadows, threats waiting for moments of weakness. But inside those walls, Elena and Lucien had built something the darkness couldn't touch. Not perfect, not safe, but real. And maybe, Elena thought as sleep finally claimed her, maybe that was enough. Maybe love, messy and complicated and absolutely terrifying, was always enough, as long as you were brave enough to fight for it. 1 year later, Elena stood in the gardens of the Moretti estate beneath blooming cherry blossoms, wearing a simple white dress, her hand clasped in Lucien's. The ceremony was small, just Marco and a few of Lucien's most trusted people as witnesses. No elaborate decorations, no grand pronouncements, just two people who'd survived hell together, promising to face whatever came next as partners. Do you take this man, the officiant asked, to have and to hold, for better or worse, in violence and in peace, until death do you part? Elena looked at Lucien, this beautiful, dangerous, completely devoted man who'd invaded her life like a hurricane and refused to leave, and felt her heart overflow. I do, she said clearly. And do you take this woman? Yes, Lucien interrupted. Whatever the question is, the answer is yes. I take her. I choose her. I'm hers. In every way that matters. The officiant smiled. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Lucien kissed her before the words were even finished, desperate and claiming and full of promises they'd already proven they could keep. When they finally broke apart, Elena whispered, We made it. We did, against every odd, despite every threat. So what happens now? Now? Lucien pulled her close, his amber eyes warm. Now we live. Really live. Not just survive or endure, but actually build a life worth fighting for. Together. Always together. They stood there beneath the cherry blossoms while Marco snapped a few photos and the small gathering applauded. The invisible cleaning lady from the airport was gone. In her place stood Elena Moretti, teacher, wife, survivor. She'd spent 2 years drowning in debt and exhaustion before Lucien found her, had been invisible to the world around her, had forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen. But Lucien had looked at her, really looked at her, and decided she was worth burning the world down for. And somehow, impossibly, she'd fallen in love with the man willing to become a monster to protect her. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy and violent and born from darkness, but it was real. It was theirs. And Elena wouldn't change a single moment. Not the fear, not the pain, not the near-death experiences or the nights spent wondering if they'd see morning. Because all of it, every terrifying, beautiful, impossible moment, had led to this. To standing in a garden with the man she loved, choosing him over safety, over sanity, over everything else the world said mattered. Lucien Moretti might have been a monster, but he was her monster, and she would choose him again in every lifetime. That was what love meant in their world. And it was more than enough.